Chapter 309. Clatter. The water-Chilean king shook its body and transformed into a scene from a landscape painting. A quiet and secluded bamboo house stood on the road. The Swalan of Goguryeo wanted to speak, but he was shocked to find that his tongue had turned into the carpet on the floor of the bamboo house, and he could not speak. He wanted to move his eyeballs, but he was shocked to find that his eyeballs had turned into the lanterns hanging under the eaves of the bamboo house, swaying in the wind. His mouth had turned into the door of the hut. His teeth had become the threshold, and his nose had become the door bolt. The Swalan of Goguryeo was horrified. It was worth mentioning that monsters had the ability to transform into anything. This was a skill that all monsters would have when they evolved to a certain level. The Swalan of Goguryeo was also good at it, so it only took a thought for him to transform into a bamboo house. However, the Swalan of Goguryeo was not in such a situation at the moment. He had really turned into a bamboo house, and his body was completely out of control. His whole body, except for his consciousness, was still his own. Every part of his body did not belong to him, and he had become a real bamboo house. Seeing this, Shun Lian had a playful smile on his face, and he strolled towards the hut. Li Youxiang, Feng Ruoxi, and the others were also very curious and followed him. The shrimp soldiers and crab generals did not know what was going on, but they also followed and surrounded the bamboo house to look at it. "A bunch of trash! Come and protect me!" The Swalan of Goguryeo wanted to shout, but he could only shout in his heart. It was useless to shout hysterically because he could not make any sound. Seeing Shun Lian walk to the door and look around, the Swalan of Goguryeo had a crazy killing intent in his heart, and he wanted to bite Shun Lian to death. Shun Lian raised his hand and touched the door. The feeling he got from his hand was no different from a real bamboo door. It was so realistic that it was hard to imagine that all of this was actually Swalan of Goguryeo. Swalan of Goguryeo felt his hair stand on end. He could clearly feel that Shun Lian was touching his mouth. The feeling of being played with wantonly made Swalan of Goguryeo furious. The next moment, Shun Lian kicked him hard. A crack. A corner of the threshold is chipped. My teeth. If Swalan of Goguryeo could speak, his voice would be a blood-curdling scream. This time, Swalan of Goguryeo finally experienced the terror of the heaven-storing seal. This kind of seal-storing ability was too frightening. It was simply beyond imagination. His body had already been imprinted into a bamboo house. Any damage done to the bamboo house would actually be done to his body, and it would be a substantial damage. The most frightening thing was that his teeth had been kicked out by Shun Lian. He could clearly feel the teeth rolling in his mouth and bleeding uncontrollably. However, from an outsider's point of view, only a corner of the threshold of the cottage was chipped. It is indeed a primordial treasure. Shun Lian finally figured out the use of the heaven-storing seal. He could not help but click his tongue in wonder. He sighed with a smile and said, "Swalan of Goguryeo has really been greatly transformed by the heaven-storing seal." Li Youxiang blinked and asked curiously, "Young master, why did Swalan of Goguryeo turn himself into a bamboo house?" Shun Lian was slightly stunned and looked at the scene just now. For Li Youxiang and the others who did not know the truth, what they saw was indeed Swalan of Goguryeo turning himself into a bamboo house. This also explained why those shrimp soldiers and crab generals were still so calm. Shun Lian could not help but smile. He said with a playful smile, "There are enemies following us." Swalan of Goguryeo deliberately turned himself into a bamboo house to lure the enemies to their deaths. As he spoke, Shun Lian looked around the bamboo house. Suddenly, he pointed at the bamboos in front of the door and said to the shrimp soldiers and crab generals, "You guys turn into an old man, an old wife, and a few children. Cooperate with Swalan of Goguryeo to put on a show. Oh, by the way, these bamboos are too much of an eyesore. Quickly cut them down." After a pause, he said, "The smell of life here is too thin. Those of you who have urine, quickly pee. Those of you who have feces, quickly poop. Make some smells to confuse the enemies. If you want to put on a show, do you understand?" When the shrimp soldiers and crab generals heard this, They all looked at Swaylin of Goguryeo and waited for instructions. However, Swaylin of Goguryeo did not say a word. It seemed that he had acquiesced. Shun Lian shouted, "Why don't you carry out the order?" The shrimp soldiers and crab generals looked at each other and then took action. Immediately, the two crab generals turned into an old man and his wife. The rest of the people turned into a dozen children. "Let's cut the bamboos," the old man and his wife said. The two crab generals changed their weapons into sickles. They walked to the bamboos and started to chop them in full swing. "Trash, a bunch of trash. I'll kill you. Ouch." Swaylin of Goguryeo wanted to cry, but had no tears. She watched her 10 fingers being cut off one by one. She was in so much pain that she wanted to die. At this moment, the dozen children were also busy. They ran inside and outside the bamboo house, took off their pants, peed, or squatted down. The scene was unbearable to watch. "You can't do this." Swaylin of Goguryeo wanted to die. She had never been so desperate and helpless. Shun Lian and the others hid and watched from afar. They could not stop laughing. After a while, 2 middle-aged men walked over from afar. They were a pair of twins. They looked exactly the same. Even the stubble on their faces was almost the same. The difference was that one of them had gentle and kind eyes, while the other had cold and fierce eyes. Their temperament was very different. It seemed that one was a good person and the other was a bad person. They were none other than the good and evil brothers that Huang Yuanwu had mentioned. They had come to attack Shun Lian. The twins had been lying in ambush in the Valley of Ruins, waiting for an opportunity. They did not expect Shun Lian and the others to finish the battle so easily. They were very afraid and had to give up their plan. They followed them all the way and looked for a good opportunity. When the twin brothers came closer and saw the bamboo hut, they immediately revealed a look of bewilderment. "Brother, when did this bamboo house appear on this road? I don't remember seeing it when we came here." The man with fierce eyes was surprised. "This was evil brother. I don't remember either." The person with gentle eyes nodded. His brows were also furrowed into a knot. He was Brother Kindness. "I'll go and ask." Good brother thought for a while and walked forward. He came to the old man's wife and asked with a smile, "Old lady, when did you move here?" The old man replied, "Just a few days ago." Good brother listened carefully to the old man's accent. He took a few steps back and whispered to evil brother, "He doesn't seem to be a local." The evil brother replied. Shun Lian and his group disappeared all of a sudden. This is where they disappeared. There is something strange about these people. At this point, he made a throat-cutting gesture. Good brother closed his eyes and said, "They may be innocent people. It's evil to kill the innocent. You do it." Evil brother grinned, and a ferocious look appeared on his face. He clenched his fist, and the vital energy around him surged wildly. Dense vital energy gushed out and turned into a black saber that fell into his hand. Chapter 310. Puff. Suddenly, the old man's head flew off. Blood spurted high up into the sky like a fountain, splashing all over the ground. No one had thought that the evil brother would suddenly attack, and they were all caught off guard. That old man screamed and immediately revealed his true form, which was a huge crab with a strong vitality. He didn't die after his head was cut off, and instead, he swung his huge crab pincer. "So, you're a monster in disguise. Feel my endless evil intentions." The evil brother sneered and became even more ferocious. The black broadsword seemed to be real, yet not real. It was strange and unpredictable as it suddenly thrust forward. The broadsword flashed, and the pressure sword. In a split second, the crab pincer was cut off and fell to the ground. The crab general was horrified and retreated in panic. Evil brother took advantage of the situation and mercilessly chopped the crab general into 8 pieces in just a few moves. "Kill him." The other crab general and the other monsters were furious. They shook their bodies and transformed into their normal human forms. They waved their tridents and other demon weapons and screamed as they rushed forward. The evil brother was not afraid at all. He laughed coldly and became 100 times more ferocious. His black broadsword was incomparably fierce, killing monsters like killing dogs. At this moment, Brother Kindness slowly opened his eyes. Seeing this, Brother Kindness couldn't help but smile and say, "So, you are monsters. Killing monsters is good. Then, I won't be polite." Brother Kindness stepped forward. His aura suddenly surged. The strange Yun Yuan condensed into water. The crystal-clear water was like a waterfall that surrounded his body. He could control it freely and naturally. Follow the good. Kindness is like the sunlight that warms people's hearts. Kindness is boundless and holy. It can cleanse people's hearts. Brother Kindness walked forward step by step. A shrimp soldier raised his long spear and stabbed at him. Brother Kindness smiled. His smile was especially warm. The water rushed out like a waterfall and brushed past the shrimp soldier's body. The prawn soldier's eyes glazed over. Pious tears gradually appeared in his eyes. His expression was deranged as he shouted, "I am a sinner. I want to do good. From today onwards, I want to be a kind monster." Brother Kindness smiled and said, "Go kill the other monsters." The shrimp soldier didn't say anything. He turned around and rushed to his comrade, not far away. He stabbed his spear into his comrade's eye socket and through his head. "You!" All the prawn soldiers and crab generals were horrified. "I want to be a kind monster." The crazed prawn soldier became even crazier, shouting as he continued to attack his comrades. At the same time, Brother Kindness opened his arms and chanted with a smile, "The sun is so bright and beautiful. The flowers are so blooming. It is a good day to do good deeds. Everyone feel my goodwill and do good deeds together." The water surrounding Brother Kindness surged and condensed into 3 water arrows out of thin air, shooting towards the 3 monsters. The water arrows hit their bodies, but there were no wounds, and they disappeared into their bodies in a flash. The 3 demons were stunned as well. Gradually, a deranged expression appeared on their faces as they shouted, "I want to be a kind demon. I want to do good deeds every day." As they screamed, they suddenly raised their weapons and began to slaughter their companions. Blood splattered everywhere. On one side, the evil younger brother Saber might was ferocious, while on the other side, his own people were changing sides one after another. They were in imminent danger. The prawn soldiers and crab generals were terrified and fled in all directions. When Suelin of Goguryeo saw this scene, his heart was bleeding. The 500 prawn soldiers and crab generals he led had suffered losses along the way. Now, there were less than 100 left. In the blink of an eye, another dozen were killed. Just the word miserable was enough to describe it. The good and evil twins displayed strange and powerful fighting strength. The wind and clouds were scattered, and they were unstoppable. "Brother, these demons seem to be under Suelin of Goguryeo's command." The evil brother rested his black broadsword on his shoulder and coldly looked at the bamboo house. Brother Kindness nodded and said in a low voice, "As expected, Suelin of Goguryeo has betrayed our family Huang." The evil brother said fiercely, "Suelin of Goguryeo is a bastard, a fence-sitter. He must have been kissed by pigs when he was young. He thinks he is a flower on the edge of a cliff, but in fact he is just a speck of dregs in the Wei River." This person's words were vicious, and he didn't repeat them. When Suelin of Goguryeo heard every word, he was completely enraged. "This king endured humiliation for your family Huang and lost soldiers. Do you think it was easy for me? Is this how your family Huang sees me? Aggrieved, depressed, angry?" At this time, Brother Kindness said, "Let's go in and take a look." The twins entered the bamboo house and stepped through the door. As soon as they entered, they stepped on the carpet on the floor. That was Suelin of Goguryeo's tomb. Disgusting. After passing through the front room, there was a corridor at the back that led to a pavilion. The brothers walked all the way to the pavilion. When they arrived, they found that there was a winding area behind the pavilion. The corridor shrank inwards in circles and finally led to an unknown place. There was a well beside the winding corridor. The good and evil brothers looked around and found nothing unusual. Unknowingly, they arrived beside the well. At this time, Shun Lian smiled lightly and said, "Release." With that, the mysterious power that the heaven-rubbishing seal had exerted on Suelin of Goguryeo was released. A shocking scene appeared. The ground under the twins' feet suddenly softened and turned into a fleshy color. A sticky liquid gushed out. They couldn't help but be shocked. Looking around, they found that everything around them was changing. The corridor they had walked through had turned into an esophagus, the pavilion had turned into a stomach, and the winding corridor had turned into intestines. The good and evil brothers were standing at the entrance of the intestines. However, the sudden change left them completely confused. They were surrounded by huge organs and could only see many fleshy tissues squirming around. In his panic, Brother Evil swung his black broadsword and slashed wildly. Brother Kindness also released sparkling water to wash the surroundings. Swalen of Goguryeo returned to human form, but his stomach was in turmoil. Thinking about it, how could it not be in turmoil after swallowing 2 living people and attacking randomly in his stomach? Boundless pain assaulted him. Blood seeped out of Swalen of Goguryeo's mouth. In his fury, he hurriedly activated the Tiani holy water. It was the water from the well. It gushed out and engulfed the good and evil brothers like a flood. The Tiani holy water was poisonous. The good and evil brothers had nowhere to hide in Swalen of Goguryeo's body. They were swallowed by the Tiani holy water and exploded. Wah! Swalen of Goguryeo coughed out a mouthful of blood and sat on the ground, paralyzed. The good and evil brothers had caused great damage to his body. His intestines, stomach, and other organs were severely damaged. If he wasn't a black water mystical snake, but some other monster, he might have died. Swalen of Goguryeo hurriedly sat down cross-legged to regulate his breathing. With the black water mystical snake's strong self-healing ability, he should be able to fully recover in 3 to 5 days. At this moment, Shan Lian walked over with a smile and said, Swalen of Goguryeo, I've given you 2 living people. Do they taste good? Swalen of Goguryeo raised his head and looked at Shan Lian's smiling face. His heart was filled with rage and killing intent, but he couldn't vent it. He couldn't help but feel depressed. He squeezed out a cold smile and said, They taste good. Very good. Thank you, King of the North, for the gift. Shun Lian said, You're welcome. You're welcome. You and I are close. It's what I should do. Swalen of Goguryeo couldn't help but clench his teeth. Chapter 3:11. Shun Lian knew when to stop. He did not continue to tease the water-Chilan king and allowed him to recuperate. 6 hours later, Swalen of Goguryeo suppressed his injuries and stood up slowly. He glanced at Shun Lian and said in a deep voice, What a powerful heaven-storing seal. Its power is mysterious and unpredictable. Shun Lian curled his lips and said indifferently, Storing is only the most basic power of the heaven-storing seal. This treasure has other mysteries that need to be explored and tested. When he said this, Shun Lian squinted his eyes and looked at the water-Chilan king as if he was looking at a flower girl. There was a hidden meaning in his words, as if he was hinting that he still wanted to use him as a test subject. Swalen of Goguryeo shuddered and had goosebumps all over his body. He quickly begged for mercy. I'm unlucky and can't afford it. He hated Shun Lian to the core, but he was also terrified. He had been tortured by Shun Lian and was now a frightened bird. Shun Lian smiled and said, Swalen of Goguryeo is too modest. It's almost time. Let's be on our way. Nothing happened after that. In fact, the good and evil brothers were the last group of snipers sent by Family Huang. The funny thing was that they were defeated before they could confront Shun Lian. It was unknown what Family Huang would think when he learned of this. They walked straight. They arrived at Hound King Mountain. Although it was called a mountain, it was actually a huge mound less than 100 meters high. It was surrounded by redwood forests and dark holes. They could hear barking from afar. Guide Fong Ruashi smiled and said, Look, those black holes are actually dog holes. Hound King Mountain is a place where dog demons gather. The dog demons here have a good relationship with humans. As long as we don't attack them, they won't attack us. Shun Lian nodded and smiled. It seems that dog demons have learned how to get along with humans. They are different from wolf demons and can be tamed as companions. Fong Ruashi's eyes flashed, and she said with a smile, There are many dog demons in Hound King Mountain, but they are not exclusive. They are allowed to recognize humans as their masters. If you like, you can adopt a dog demon. You only need to spend some money. Hearing this, Li Youxiang was excited. She tugged at the corner of Shun Lian's shirt with an expectant look. Shun Lian thought for a moment and thought of Wan Sanyi's dog demon, Wan Da Huang. He smiled and said, "Since you're passing, don't miss it. Since you're here, let's go take a look." "Yay!" Li Youxiang cheered. "I've wanted to raise a dog for a long time, a cuter one." Everyone quickened their pace and passed through the redwood forest, arriving at the foot of Hound King Mountain. Roar, roar. Immediately, many dog demons approached and growled threateningly, warning everyone to stop moving forward. Feng Ruoxi took a step forward and took out her bulging wallet. "We're here to buy dogs." The dog demons immediately stopped growling and showed an affectionate gesture. Many of the dog bites who had not fully transformed ran over and jumped excitedly. They circled around Shun Lian and the rest. It was a joyous scene. They treated Suilin of Goguryeo and the other demons differently. None of the dog demons approached them. Suilin of Goguryeo and the other demons looked at the dog demons with disdain and disdain. Feng Ruoxi was surrounded by 7 or 8 large dogs licking her. She said with a wry smile, "These dog demons are hoping to be chosen by us and become our companions. I want them. I want them all." Li Youxiang laughed happily. She hugged the large dogs and played with them. Surrounded by the dogs, they came to a huge cave. The cave was brightly lit. It was a spacious hall. Shun Lian and the others entered the hall and saw an old man with white hair and beard sitting on a dog-head throne. His face was wrinkled and his eyes were cloudy. Feng Ruoxi whispered, "This is King Quan. We have to present gifts to him to show our sincerity. We can only choose our dogs after we get his approval." Shun Lian nodded. He didn't say much and left everything to Feng Ruoxi. Feng Ruoxi walked forward and greeted King Quan. She expressed her intention and presented the money. King Quan pulled himself together and coughed softly. "Have any of you eaten dog meat?" Hearing this, Li Youxiang asked in surprise. "There are people who would eat dog meat. Who would do such a heartless thing?" Shun Lian was stunned. He sensed strange ripples spreading in the air after King Quan spoke. He thought for a while and shook his head. King Quan asked again, "Do you abuse dogs?" Li Youxiang patted her chest and said, "I love dogs the most. I can't wait to love them." Shun Lian shook his head again. King Quan was silent for a while and nodded. "They're suitable to raise dogs. They can choose." King Quan leaned on the throne and closed his eyes to rest. Then, a shape-shifted dog demon led Shun Lian and the others to the back of the mountain. Thousands of dog demons gathered there. It was a spectacular scene. Shun Lian had never seen so many demon dogs. It was an eye-opener, and his eyes lit up. Li Youxiang held her breath and said nervously, "What should I do? These dogs are all good. Which one should I choose?" Feng Ruoxi joked, "As long as they don't like drinking like you." Li Youxiang became spirited and said, "I know what to choose now." Immediately, he flipped his hand and took out the wine pool. He took a sip of the wine and spat it out, turning it into a cloud of wine mist. Instantly, the dog demons swayed and fell drunk. Woof, woof, woof. A half-shape-shifted dog demon was very excited and barked happily. Li Youxiang was overjoyed. She waved her hand and said, "It's you. Come here." The dog demon walked out of the crowd and rushed to Li Youxiang. It licked her crazily as if it had found its destined master. Li Youxiang was also very happy. She hugged the dog demon and said, "I'll give you a name. Let's call you Little Dimple, okay?" Woof. The dog demon, who couldn't speak human language, barked excitedly to express its joy. Seeing this scene, Shun Lian was quite inspired. He immediately released a powerful divine aura to suppress the dog demon. In an instant, all the dog demons in the mountain were trembling. They crawled on the ground in horror and trembled. Roar! On a rock far away, a huge dog demon that was sleeping soundly suddenly woke up. Its eyes flashed with an unyielding wildness. It stood up and roared at Shun Lian. Shun Lian showed a look of admiration. He took a step forward and came to the front of the dog demon. This dog demon was much bigger than him. It was more than 3 meters tall when it stood upright. Its fur was shiny and its body was strong and powerful. Its fangs were exposed. The other dog demons had more or less scars on their bodies, but this dog demon didn't have any. The surrounding dog demons didn't dare to get close to it. It was quite domineering. Shunlian smiled and said, "Follow me." The dog demon squinted its eyes and looked at Shunlian. Its eyes were cautious and cunning. It circled around him and finally lowered its body. Shunlian touched its head and said with a smile, "I'll give you a name. You'll be Abomination." Roar! Abomination showed an anthropomorphic happy expression. It seemed to be very satisfied with this name. Shunlian leaped onto Abomination's broad back and said, "Let's go. Follow me to fight for hegemony." Awoo! Abomination raised its head and howled. It rushed out as fast as the wind. Its majestic appearance was incomparable. Seeing this, Suelin of Gogirio's mouth twitched. She sighed secretly and said, "Shunlian has obtained a strong support. If this goes on, how can the family Huang fight with him?" Chapter 312. After passing Dog King Mountain, there was a gray plain in front of them. It stretched as far as the eye could see and was vast and boundless, making people feel relaxed. It was indeed a smooth road. There was a wide road on the plain that led directly to 9 Ingu Stronghold. Traveling merchants could be seen everywhere. If we follow this trade route, we will reach 9 Ingu Stronghold in 3 to 8 days if we are fast, Fong Ruashi said excitedly. Along the way, the Huang family had set up traps and ambushes on all sides. Even though there were many thrills, Shunlian was able to crush all of them with ease. Therefore, Fong Ruashi and the others were not afraid of family Huang, who defeated and replaced family Lin, the #1 aristocratic family in the north. Instead, they were full of fighting spirit and their blood was boiling. Shunlian was riding on the tall Abomination. He looked into the distance with a calm expression. The sharpness on his body was faintly restrained. He was unfathomable, as vast as the sea and as deep as the abyss, giving people a great sense of oppression. On the way, Suelin of Gogirio glanced at Shunlian many times, and an indescribable strange feeling flashed in her heart. Until noon the next day, Suelin of Gogirio raised her eyebrows and fixed her gaze into the distance. A tall and sturdy figure was walking over. Clang! This person was handcuffed with heavy shackles, like a felon, but there were no Yamen officers escorting him. Such a strange person suddenly appeared on the road, and anyone could not help but take a few more glances at him. When they got closer, they saw clearly that although the man's clothes were not enough to cover his body and his hair was disheveled and fluttering in the wind, there was a string of large green jade Buddhist beads around his thick neck. They suspected that he was a monk, an ascetic monk who practices on behalf of others. Everyone was stunned and made such a guess. There was no other reason than that ascetic monks often looked like this. They were unkempt and dressed in rags, and they endured things that ordinary people would think were painful. For example, they had to abstain from food and water for a long time, lie on a bed full of nails, walk on hot charcoal, endure extreme heat and cold, and so on. Ascetic monks did these harsh practices to train their endurance and desire. This ascetic monk was handcuffed and walked in the world as a sinner. It could be said that he was unconventional and eye-catching. Seeing this scene, Suelin of Gogirio held her breath. She could not help but squint and stare deeply at the ascetic, and her expression changed. After a while, Suelin of Gogirio seemed to confirm something. His body, he could not stop, and his face. Are they crazy? How could Fayuan Temple let him out? Water Chilin King's face twitched. He had the urge to run away. He could not help but turn to look at Shunlian. In a trance, Suelin of Gogirio finally understood why Shunlian had restrained all his sharpness. He was accumulating power and preparing for an unprecedented fierce battle. It was because this ascetic monk was one of the 2 most powerful monks from Fayuan Temple, the tyrannical, the angry monk. When an ordinary man is angry, blood will splatter 3 feet. When the angry monk is angry, the 4 extremes will be destroyed, the 9 provinces will be cracked, the fire will not be extinguished, and the water will not stop flowing. This was a peerless evil monk who would bring about the end of the world. Suelen of Goguryeo was terrified. He never thought that family Huang would persuade Faiyuan Temple to release this monster. Thinking of this, Suelen of Goguryeo suddenly became very angry. Family Huang had prepared such a trump card, but still dragged him into the water and forced him to travel with Shun Lian. He had suffered so much and suffered so much, but it was not necessary at all. Family Huang did not use him as a trump card at all. He had leaked information all the way and tried his best to create trouble for Shun Lian. Not to mention the effect, his efforts were real, and the suffering he had suffered was real. The truth was that Family Huang did not take him seriously from beginning to end. How could Suelen of Goguryeo not be angry? As he was angry, the angry monk who was walking toward him suddenly raised his head. A trace of bright red appeared in the monk's dim eyes, and he looked at him coldly. Suelen of Goguryeo was really scared. As if he had been struck by lightning, his whole body stiffened and his scalp became numb. He almost fell off the crab monster's back, and cold sweat instantly soaked the back of his clothes. This is too scary. Cold sweat rolled down Suelen of Goguryeo's face. He thought to himself, I was just angry. How could this provoke the angry monk? Seeing this, Shun Lian squinted at Suelen of Goguryeo and then looked at the angry monk thoughtfully. After a short silence, he asked, Suelen of Goguryeo, do you know him? Suelen of Goguryeo's lips were dry. He said bitterly, have you heard of the two strange monks of the Faiyuan Temple? Shun Lian's heart skipped a beat. He took a deep breath and said calmly, there are two strange monks of the Faiyuan Temple, the laughing monk and the angry monk. The laughing monk is always laughing, while the angry monk is furious. Suelen of Goguryeo's mouth twitched. He said, this is the angry monk. Shun Lian's eyes flashed, and he grinned. He jumped down from the abomination and glanced at Li Youxiang, Feng Ruoshi, Shihu, and Ning Quan. He said, you all step back for now. Li Youxiang pursed her lips and said with her chest out, young master, I can help you. Before she finished speaking, the angry monk suddenly took a big step forward. With this step, he crossed 100 meters. He approached like a ghost and arrived in front of Suelen of Goguryeo in an instant. Suelen of Goguryeo felt his hair stand on end. Suelen of Goguryeo was tongue-tied. He couldn't speak clearly. The angry monk looked at Suelen of Goguryeo with an indifferent expression. He shook his body, and with a crack, the shackles broke and fell. The angry monk slowly raised his hand and said coldly, it's not good to be angry. Anger is harmful to the body. I'm going to release your soul. His voice was deep and dull, like the sound of a morning bell. After saying this, the angry monk punched out. His fist suddenly expanded and became as big as a hammer. The wind generated by the fist tore through the air, making a sharp buzzing sound. Heaven and earth trembled, as if they were afraid of the power of this punch. The power of this punch was so terrifying. Although Suelen of Goguryeo was shocked, he was already on guard. He didn't care about anything else, and immediately used the heaven's net entanglement. Entanglement. This word was squeezed out from Suelen of Goguryeo's teeth. In an instant, invisible threads shot out and turned into a large net, covering the angry monk and wrapping him up. Retract. Suelen of Goguryeo used all his strength to tighten the net. He used both hands to pull the heaven's net entanglement. The angry monk seemed to be fixed in place. He maintained his punching posture. His fist was thrust forward, but it couldn't move forward at all. The fine heaven's net entanglement tightened around his body and sank deep into his skin. Seeing this, Suelen of Goguryeo couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. He felt like he had just escaped death. In the next moment, he couldn't help but look a little proud. Ha! My heaven's net entanglement can infinitely strengthen the power of entanglement. Once bound, no one can break free. At this moment, Suelen of Goguryeo was beaming with joy and was immensely proud of himself. Ever since he had refined the heaven's net entanglement, he hadn't used this ability against an expert. This time, he was able to use it to entangle the angry monk. It was enough to show how magical and powerful the heaven's net entanglement was. It swept away all the grievances and haze that he had been feeling for the past few days. Be careful. Suddenly, Shun Lian's voice sounded. Suelin of Goguryeo was stunned. Soon after, his expression changed drastically. He was so scared that he almost wet himself. The muscles all over the angry monk's body bulged and quickly expanded outwards, bursting with endless power. In an instant, the heaven's net entanglement couldn't bear the burden. With a cracking sound, it broke apart like a piece of brocade. With his ability broken, Suelin of Goguryeo immediately suffered a backlash. Blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth, and his face was as pale as ash. The angry monk continued to charge forward, and his fist continued to punch toward him. Suelin of Goguryeo's hair stood on end, and he hurriedly retreated. However, at this moment, something strange happened. Suelin of Goguryeo felt a strange force suddenly appear in his body. It drove his body forward instead of retreating, and he collided with the angry monk's fist. In the eyes of others, it was as if the angry monk's fist was a magnet that attracted Suelin of Goguryeo. A loud bang sounded. Suelin of Goguryeo suffered a heavy blow to his abdomen. He immediately bent over like a shrimp, and a stream of flame-like blood spurted out of his mouth. Suelin of Goguryeo's face was distorted to the extreme. The power of the huge fist had destroyed his internal organs. All his organs were severely damaged, and even his bones were broken. The self-healing ability of my human form is not strong enough. I have to revert to my original form to survive. Suelin of Goguryeo clenched his teeth and hugged the angry monk's huge fist with both hands. He opened his mouth wide and sprayed a ball of black water at the angry monk's face. It was the Tiani holy water. The black water shot out like a cold arrow and sprayed on the angry monk's face. It immediately entered his body through his nostrils. Suelin of Goguryeo suddenly jumped away, and he landed on the ground and turned into a huge black water. He laughed and said, "You're finished. You've been hit by my Tiani holy water. In a moment, your body will explode and you will die." The angry monk was indifferent. Red flames suddenly appeared in his eyes, and his body seemed to be on fire. Wisps of white smoke spread out. "You?" Suelin of Goguryeo's heart skipped a beat. He exclaimed, "You actually evaporated my Tiani holy water. How is this possible?" The angry monk did not say a word. He continued to charge at Suelin of Goguryeo. At this moment, where did this stinky beggar come from? How dare you attack our king? The shrimp soldiers and crab generals under Suelin of Goguryeo's command all became protective of their king. They were unable to restrain their anger and started to clamor at the angry monk. "Don't be angry," Suelin of Goguryeo cried bitterly. He hurriedly shouted, but it was too late. The angry monk suddenly turned to the shrimp soldiers and crab generals. He said indifferently, "Being angry is a sin. This monk will release your souls." With a whoosh, he turned into a shadow and approached them. He punched violently. It was a loud bang. The crab general didn't even have time to scream before a fist pierced through his body. His body immediately exploded, turning into minced meat that filled the air. The scene was extremely terrifying. The angry monk killed the crab general with one punch. Without any hesitation, he charged at the other monsters and crushed them. He killed one monster with one punch. They all exploded with one punch. Soon, blood flowed like a river. The ground was covered with minced meat. The angry monk did not have a single drop of blood on him. He moved his feet and pounced at Suelin of Goguryeo. At this moment, the Blackwater mystical snake's injuries were almost healed. The powerful self-healing ability of snakes was on full display at this moment. Suelin of Goguryeo gasped. He raised his huge snake head. The thick scales all over his body stood upright like sharp swords. The angry monk pounced. His fist expanded like a balloon. The majestic might was unparalleled. The iron hammer smashed heavily on the Blackwater mystical snake's back, where the scales were the hardest. With a loud bang, the ground under the Blackwater mystical snake split open. The snake's body fell down from middle. its whole body twisted into an exaggerated U shape, raising clouds of dust. The wind was strong and soon blew away the thick smoke. There was a huge pit more than 10 meters deep on the ground. Swalen of Goguryeo was in a miserable state. There was a huge hole in his body. Blood spurted high into the sky like a fountain. The huge force even knocked him unconscious. The angry monk stood on the huge snake's body. His body was emitting white smoke. The blood on his body evaporated instantly. Everyone held their breaths. Such a terrifying battlegoom master was unheard of. He was too strong. He actually used his fists to deal with Swalen of Goguryeo and all his subordinates. In a few breaths' time, if they didn't see it with their own eyes, no one would believe it. The angry monk slowly turned his head and looked at Shunlian. With this glance, Feng Ruoshi's body trembled. Sure, who was petrified? Ning Quan's, but went limp on the ground. The angry monk jumped up and landed in front of Shunlian. He stared at him coldly and said, "You refined the raging lion and committed the sin of anger. This monk will release your soul. Get lost." Li Youxiang had already held a mouthful of wine in her mouth. She suddenly spat it on the angry monk's face. The wine turned into mist and enveloped him. The angry monk was immediately bathed in the smell of wine. However, the angry monk's body flashed with red light. It was as if a red flame was rising. All the wine smell evaporated instantly and dissipated in the air. Not a trace of wine smell was left. Li Youxiang was completely stunned. The angry monk took a step forward and punched at Li Youxiang. Li Youxiang screamed and closed her eyes in fright. However, after waiting for a while, nothing happened. When she opened her eyes, Shunlian had unknowingly reached out and grabbed the angry monk's wrist. "All of you, step back," Shunlian said calmly. "Young master, you can do it." Li Youxiang took a deep breath and shouted. She ran away with Feng Ruoshi and the others with her dimples. Abomination looked deeply at the angry monk. With a low growl, it also ran away. Shunlian looked directly at the angry monk and smiled. "Anger is the source of your strength. So you're the Hulk." The angry monk was slightly stunned. He replied in all seriousness, "When a monk is angry, his body turns red. He doesn't turn green." Shunlian laughed and said happily, "A person will be cuckolded sooner or later. Even if you don't turn green today, you will be beaten green by me." The angry monk's body suddenly expanded and became huge. Shunlian's aura also increased sharply. His body grew bigger with the wind. Powerful strength was released wantonly. In the blink of an eye, both of them revealed their true forms. One was spreading martial arts under the heavens, and the other was the king of anger. "Let's fight!" Shunlian had 3 heads and 8 arms. His blood was boiling. He raised 8 fists and punched wildly. Chapter 3:13. There was a loud bang. On the gray plain, a burly figure was sent flying into the distance, leaving a trail of dust behind him. It was the angry monk. Under the attack of Shunlian's 8 arms, the 8 fists left 8 glaring dents on angry monk's body. Suddenly, a huge fist force hit the angry monk's body. The king of wrath, who was like a big Buddhist statue, immediately flew out, sticking close to the ground for 50 to 60 meters. Then, boom, the angry monk stomped on the ground with his feet. As the angry monk's feet touched the ground, the soles of his feet, Gianubo be asterisk TCH, major, feather flounder eating in the imperial court? Is it difficult to see the neck of the altar, or is it difficult to see the moon blinking? Wei Yujin the next moment. The angry monk steadied himself. Anger flashed across his face, and his aura increased by 30%. He rushed out without any pause, charging through the billowing smoke and dust toward where Shunlian was. Whoosh! The angry monk landed on the ground, and his powerful aura spread out a large ring of smoke and dust. Shunlian was no longer there. The angry monk looked around. Suddenly, the smoke and dust in a certain area surged violently, and a figure appeared from the side. It was none other than Shunlian. His 8 huge arms swung like iron whips, and they landed solidly on the angry monk's lower back. Boom! A powerful shockwave turned into a gale that swept in all directions. In a split second, all the air within 100 meters was expelled. All the smoke and dust were scattered by the impact, torn apart like a piece of cloth. The air from the intense movement was mixed with thick smoke and dust, forming a huge sandstorm that spread in all directions. In the center of the sandstorm, the angry monk's body twisted violently, and he flew forward again with his back straight. But in the next moment, before the angry monk could land, Shun Lian suddenly teleported and appeared above his head. He descended from the sky and stomped on the angry monk's head. Trample. The angry monk's head immediately sank, and his already twisted body fell in a strange arc. His head hit the ground first. Puff! The power of Shun Lian's stomp was too strong. The ground was like the surface of a lake, creating a splash of water. The angry monk was stomped into the ground. The fierce wind was like a knife. The ground cracked as if it had experienced an explosion, and a huge crater with a diameter of over 100 meters appeared. Shun Lian was the first to jump out of the pit and landed on the ground. In the middle of the deep pit, the angry monk was stuck upside down in the ground. His head and upper body had sunk into the mud, and his feet were exposed. The scene was rather comical. Soon, the angry monk made his move. He shook his arms, and with his palms facing down, he pulled his upper body out of the ground. Bah! The angry monk spat out a mouthful of mud. He looked up coldly and locked his gaze on Shun Lian. Red light flashed in his eyes, and red flames gushed out from the depths of his pupils. The flames adhered to the surface of his body and turned into a rainbow-colored robe that seemed to envelop him. A terrifying divine aura exploded outwards. The angry monk's hair stood on end as he was enveloped by the red flames. He was seething with anger. "You've really angered this monk." The angry monk walked out of the deep pit step by step. The muscles all over his body were wriggling violently, and the color of his skin had turned red, as if it was burning. He looked like a red-hot iron statue. His aura rose wildly, 2 times, 4 times, 8 times. At this moment, the angry monk was really angry. He was more than 10 times stronger than before, and he was still getting stronger. Anger will destroy everything. The angry monk sang in a low voice as if he was chanting a curse. He stood in front of Shun Lian. The ground melted rapidly under the angry monk's feet, turning into terrifying magma that flowed wantonly. In a flash, it formed an ocean of magma. Everything in the world was destroyed. Shun Lian smiled and said calmly, "You've finally shown your true ability. The current you makes me feel the pressure of Muyu. Not bad. This monk wants to release your soul." The angry monk's red eyes flashed, and his expression was filled with rage. After a roar, he punched out with both fists, which turned into overlapping shadows of fists that enveloped Shun Lian. "Good." Shun Lian laughed loudly. He was high-spirited and insufferably arrogant. He met the attack with 8 fists and shouted loudly, "Let it be strong, like a gentle breeze brushing the hills. Let it be tyrannical, like the moonlight shining on the great river." Boom, boom, boom. Every punch hit flesh. The rumbling sounds were as if the boss was striking thunder. On the vast plain, magma flowed and flowed, and the red ocean continued to expand. The 2 monsters bathed in the magma started to fight fiercely. The sky darkened as if it was the end of the world. Nine Mountain, Family Huang. At the back of Nine Ingu stronghold, beside the flowing mountain stream, there was a magnificent stilted building. This building was the foundation of Family Huang. Dang, dang, dang. A series of hurried bell sounds rang. The elders quickly gathered in the discussion hall with serious expressions. They all knew that a great battle was about to happen. Huang Yuanwu and Bailey Xingshu had already arrived. Sitting on the family head's throne, Huang Yuanwu was extremely excited. He said loudly, "Everyone, Fuyuan Temple really kept their promise." Just now, the angry monk and Shun Lian met and immediately fought. Both sides started a fight on Ping Yuan Mountain. "Good. Haha, that's great. Shun Lian killed my son, Huang Yuanqing. He deserves to die." When the elders heard this, they were all deeply moved. They could not help but clap and cheer. One of them asked excitedly, "How is the battle going? Can the angry monks suppress Shang Lian?" Huang Yuanwu smiled and looked at the middle-aged man beside him. Bailey Xingshu immediately smiled and said loudly, "At the beginning, Shun Lian naturally had the upper hand, as expected of the man who defeated Ing Muyu. He is indeed tyrannical. However, the angry monk's strength lies in that the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. As long as his anger does not stop, his strength is limitless. Right now, the one who has the upper hand is naturally the angry monk." Everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Just imagining the scene of the fierce battle made their faces filled with shock. One of the elders sighed and said, "Legend has it that the angry monk has 3 battle forms. They're the king of anger, the hair of anger, and the sky of anger. Each one is stronger than the other. I wonder if this is true?" Bailey Xingshu nodded and smiled. "It is true. Now, Shun Lian has forced the angry monk to use his second form, the hair of anger. In this form, the angry monk's hair will stand up to the sky. He is even more powerful than the king of anger form. It is extremely terrifying. Wherever he goes, everything will turn into magma under the fire of his anger. It can destroy everything." The elders were even more shocked. Their breathing stagnated. They could not wait to go to the battlefield to watch the battle. Huang Yuanwu waved his hand and looked serious. He said in a deep voice, "Don't be happy too early. Using the angry monk to suppress Shun Lian is only the first step of the plan. The main point is after. How is the preparation of the Blood Sea and Corpse Mountain formation?" An elderly elder hurriedly stood up and cupped his hands. "Don't worry, Master. I have personally checked it 3 times. Everything is ready." Huang Yuanwu's eyes lit up. He was extremely excited and said proudly, "Good. After this battle, the family Huang will not only aim for the north, but also the world." Chapter 314. They're fighting. On a high ground about 800 li away from the battlefield, there were rows of buildings. It looked like a town, but it was actually family Sun's residence. It was worth mentioning here. Aristocratic families had many clansmen, so when they gathered together, they naturally lived on a large scale. The small ones were the size of town, while the large ones occupied a mountain range or a city. For example, the Sun clan had more than 3,000 clansmen, including the retainers, martial masters, and servants. There were a total of 15,000 people. In fact, in the northern lands, family Sun could only be considered a small or medium-sized aristocratic family. It was only because they were related to family Huang through marriage that the family benefited from. But after all, they had only risen recently, so they were more like a nouveau riche. A group of people slowly approached, less than 10 li away from family Sunday. The bramble flag fluttered in the wind. It was the Gushan League. At this time, in the middle of the carriage, there was a sudden cheer that sounded like a child's. It was none other than the league master, old Jingxin. Han Baisher, who was also in the carriage, quickly put a finger to his mouth, indicating for her to be quiet. Old Jingxin reluctantly shut her mouth, but still whispered, "They're finally fighting. This league master also wants to fight, haha." Han Baisher rolled his eyes at her, then seriously looked at the letter in his hand and sighed. The opponent is actually the peerless evil monk, the angry monk. The king of the north is in a difficult battle, and the outcome is hard to predict. Hearing this, old Jingxin's eyes flashed, and she smiled disapprovingly. "What's there to be afraid of? With the bramble death spear in hand, I can kill them all with one stab. Let's go. We're going to destroy family Sunday." Han Baisher was speechless. He lowered his head and frowned, saying in a deep voice, "The world is like a game of chess, unpredictable. Have you ever thought about what will happen to the Gushan League if the king of the north is defeated and we destroy family Sun?" Before this, he had never thought that a monster like the angry monk would get involved. Otherwise, he would have thought twice before setting off. You don't know how terrifying the angry monk is. When he goes berserk, he completely loses his mind and doesn't differentiate between friend and foe. He becomes a killing machine that destroys everything. The king of the north may not be able to save him. Han Baisher shook his head with a complicated expression. At this moment, old Jing Xin suddenly snorted. What are you thinking so much for? The hidden dragon has already fallen asleep. A single roar can shake 1,000 mountains. Who cares who wins or loses? Today, this alliance master will turn the world upside down, and blood will flow into rivers. Han Baisher's body shook as he stared at old Jing Xin. What did you just say? Old Jing Xin shook his head with an innocent expression. He blinked and said, I didn't say anything. Let's go. I want to fight. I want to have a good fight. Beat the crap out of Family Sunday. The hidden dragon has already fallen asleep. A single roar can shake 1,000 mountains. Han Baisher recalled these words, and a heroic look gradually appeared on his face. He grinned and shouted out the window, the moon is dark and the wind is strong. A sword in hand. The accompanying leaders of the 8 divisions heard this and were incomparably excited. They roared in unison, Who is the hero of the world? Family Sun arrived, and the gatekeeper stopped the convoy. The leader of the fire division, Lin Yin, immediately handed over a visiting card and said, The Gushin League is here to pay a visit to Family Sunday. Congratulations on the birth of Sun. So it's a friend from the Gushin League. The gatekeeper smiled. His smile had a different meaning. This was because the so-called family head was happy to have a son. In reality, the family head had slept with a maid and accidentally impregnated her. A while ago, she gave birth to a son. However, the family head still hadn't given the maid status. It wasn't a glorious occasion. The Gushin League was using this as an excuse to pay a visit to Family Sun with great fanfare. It was obvious that they wanted to curry favor with the Family Sun He. Who told Family Sun to suddenly become rich? When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. The gatekeeper immediately went to report to the family head, Sun Lianqing. Sure enough, Sun Lianqing was overjoyed. He personally went out to welcome them and invited old Jing Xin and the others into the residence to hold a big banquet to celebrate. The Gushin League didn't undergo any inspection and swaggered into the residence. It went so smoothly that Han Baisher couldn't believe it. Family Sun Master, I remember that Family Sun has a rule that anyone who enters Family Sun must undergo a body search. What do you think? Han Baisher looked at Sun Lianqing in surprise. What body search? We're all on the same side. Sun Lianqing laughed and waved his hand enthusiastically. The gatekeeper immediately let them pass, and the Gushin League's convoy quickly advanced. Seeing this scene, Han Baisher's heart was filled with emotion. He deeply admired the king of the North's foresight and meticulous planning. Without Shun Lian's battle in the Valley of Ruins, Family Sun wouldn't have treated the Gushin League so enthusiastically. Han Baisher laughed and held Sun Lianqing's hand. He said loudly, Well said, we're all on the same side. Who would have thought that old Jing Xin would pout and blink at Han Baisher, asking him if she could make a move? Seeing that Han Baisher ignored her, she thought that the deputy alliance master didn't understand her meaning. Thus, old Jing Xin made a throat-slitting gesture in front of everyone. Han Baisher staggered and almost fell to the ground. Ouch, watch your step. Fortunately, Sun Lianqing didn't notice old Jing Xin's movements. Instead, he supported Han Baisher. At this moment, the fire division's master, Lian Ying, quickly held down old Jing Xin's hand and used his tall body to shield her behind. Old Jing Xin had an anxious expression on her face. Suddenly, she shouted, Everyone's in. Can we start fighting? Han Baisher was extremely speechless. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. Lian Yi and the other 8 division masters' mouths twitched. They felt like they had nothing left to live for. Sun Lianqing was stunned and puzzled. Old Alliance Master, what do you mean? What fight? Han Baisher quickly laughed and said, We brought good wine as a congratulatory gift. The Alliance Master is hungry and wants to open a jar to drink. Sun Lianqing suddenly understood. He said with a smile, The residence has prepared a banquet. Everyone has come from afar. You must drink a few cups. Han Baisher nodded and said, Family Sun is indeed hospitable. The Gushin League has prepared a special gift in addition to many gifts. Sun Lianqing looked seriously at old Jing Xin and said with a smile, "Old Alliance Master is thoughtful. May I ask what the gift is?" Old Jingxin laughed and said, "Of course it's my spear, ouch." Lianing, the Fire Division's master, pinched her and interrupted, "The Alliance Master has brought the innate treasure, the thorny death spear. He wants to show it to Family Sunday." Sun Lianqing was deeply moved. The innate treasure was a rare treasure. Even he, the master of the house, had only heard of the thorny death spear. He had never seen it with his own eyes. "Then it's an eye-opener for me today," Sun Lianqing said energetically. Then, Sun Lianqing led the Gushin League to the banquet hall and set up a banquet table. Old Ancestor has arrived. Before the banquet started, a green-clothed servant shouted. Before he finished speaking, 3 old men, 2 men, and 1 woman walked over with majestic steps. Sun Lianqing and the other Family Sun clansmen felt deep veneration. These 3 old men were Family Sun's legendary Gu masters, and there were only 3 of them. 2 of the male old men had advanced to legendary for many years, while the female old man was a newly advanced legendary. Of course, she was able to advance smoothly because of Family Huang's support. In other words, with Family Sun's original clan strength, all of their resources could only support 2 legendary Gu masters. Han Baisher led the group to greet them. An old man waved his hand and said with a smile, "We heard Old Alliance Master brought the thorny death spear. The 3 of us wanted to broaden our horizons and came to take a look." Han Baisher immediately said, "Seniors, the thorny death spear is an innate treasure. It is not suitable to take it out in a crowded place. Can we move it to a quieter place?" "That's reasonable." The old man pondered, but did not doubt him. He looked at Sun Lianqing and said, "Let's go to the back garden." Sun Lianqing immediately went to arrange and disperse the people in the back garden. Finally, Sun Lianqing, the 3 old ancestors, Old Jingxin and Han Baisher, the 6 of them came to the back garden. Han Baisher nodded at Old Jingxin and took a deep breath, saying, "We can begin now." Old Jingxin chuckled and suddenly grabbed Han Baisher. Her legs turned into thorns and took root in the ground, rapidly growing upwards. In an instant, she was 100 meters tall and looked down from the sky. Sun Lianqing and the 3 legendary old men did not know what was going on. They looked up and thought this was a necessary step for the thorny death spear to appear. Only the female Gu master frowned and asked curiously, "Why are they climbing so high?" At the next moment, Old Jingxin spat out the thorny death spear and spun in her hand. She suddenly pointed it at the 4 people below and shouted, "Look up to the sky. Then, die with gratitude in your heart." In an instant, the thorny death spear shone brightly. The expressions of the 4 people below changed. Sun Lianqing shouted, "Old Jingxin, Han Baisher, what are you doing?" Without waiting for a reply, the thorny death spear shot down. Many people had heard of the thorny death spear's unparalleled power. However, the exact power of the thorny death spear was very mysterious. The 4 people on the ground saw the thorny death spear fly out of Old Jingxin's hand and turn into a dazzling rainbow light, falling down at an unparalleled speed. Puff! The 4 people had no time to dodge and subconsciously raised their arms to protect their heads. The dazzling rainbow light enveloped them and disappeared in a flash. Sun Lianqing and the 3 legendary Gu masters were stunned. They quickly looked at themselves and were pleasantly surprised to find that they were not injured at all. The thorny death spear also disappeared. What was going on? Seeing this, Han Baisher was also stunned. Actually, he did not see the thorny death spear display its power. He only saw a rainbow light falling and disappearing and nothing else. Only Old Jingxin covered her mouth and chuckled, looking down as if she was waiting for something. No one noticed that there were specks of dust in the air, floating into the mouths and noses of Sun Lianqing and the 3 legendary Gu masters. These specks of dust were very mysterious and actually penetrated the world barrier of the 3 legendary Gu masters. At the next moment, Sun Lianqing suddenly screamed and his arms suddenly twisted. A thorny vine broke out of his skin and quickly grew, coiling around him and devouring his flesh and blood essence. Immediately after, Countless thorny vines broke out of Sun Lianqing's chest, back, thighs, and even head. Chapter 315. The scene was too bloody. Sun Lianqing's organs were all flipped out. His death was so tragic that it was unbearable to look at. Lianqing, seeing this, the three legendary elders felt their scalps go numb as they cried out in shock. Sun Lianqing was a yellow rank 10 Gu master. How could he be instantly killed so inexplicably? Oh no, the shorter old man was horrified. A thorn suddenly pierced out of his eye socket, bringing out his bloody eyeball. His entire body instantly froze on the spot. His body was torn apart, and thorns drilled out of his cracked skin one after another. How could this be? The other two legendary Gu masters felt their blood run cold as they shouted with hatred. Family Sun has no enmity with the Gushin League. Why is the Gushin League so ruthless? Han Baisher was shocked and tongue-tied. He could not help but reply. But old Jingxin laughed. Haha, it's fun. Fun. You wasted a thorny death spear just because of this. The two legendary elders died with their eyes wide open. Their bodies split apart as they screamed, their flesh and blood splattering everywhere. Han Baisher's breathing froze as he said in shock, "To think the thorny death spear is so terrifying, but I clearly remember the third-generation alliance leader saying that the thorny death spear can only kill one legendary at most." Old Jingxin laughed. If it is an ordinary legendary Gu master, it can only kill one or two. But if the opponent is a legendary Gu master of an aristocratic family, the result is very different. Oh, why is that? Back then, there was an ignorant aristocratic family who kept bullying the Gushin League. Master brought me to the door of Lone Mountain to do riddles, and after I solved the heaven-level riddle, the riddle-guessing Gu asked me what kind of innate treasure I wanted. I said I wanted a weapon that could destroy aristocratic families. Hearing this, Han Baisher's heart shook. Old Jingxin continued. Thus, the riddle-guessing Gu gave me the thorny death spear and told me that the thorny death spear was a great killing weapon against aristocratic families, a clan exterminating innate treasure. Aristocratic families are connected by blood. This was their strength, but could also be their fatal weakness. As long as a member of an aristocratic family was pierced by the thorny death spear, through that person's bloodline, everyone in the same family would be affected. As you can see, Thorny Thorn Death Spear only killed Sun Lianqing, but through him, family Sun members of the same bloodline were all buried along with him, including the legendary Gu Master who had the world's barrier. Even if their world barrier can defend against any attack, it can't stop the bloodline connection. When Han Baisher heard this, he hurriedly looked towards the banquet hall. He could faintly hear screams coming from the banquet hall. After a moment, there was dead silence. So this is the thorny death spear. Han Baisher sucked in a breath of cold air. He shuddered. How could he have thought that the innate treasure bestowed by riddle-guessing Gu was the bane of aristocratic families, killing one person and exterminating the entire clan? Han Baisher looked around and saw countless thorns growing out of the bodies of the dead family Sun members. It was like a world of thorns. He suddenly understood why the thorny death spear's power was called the thorny heaven and thorny earth. Battle cries resounded. Family Sun members were wiped out, as well as the retainers and martial masters. The remaining members of the Gushin League immediately started a massacre, sweeping away all of Family Sun's resources like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. After plundering all of Family Sun's resources, they set fire to everything. The arrogant Family Sun, the rising nouveau riche, was completely destroyed just like that. The Gushin League declared that the King of the North was the true ruler of the Northern lands. Whoever dared to disobey the King of the North, Family Sun was a good example. For a moment, many forces in the northern lands were extremely frightened and anxious. A huge sea of magma appeared on the dusky plains. Rumbling sounds were like thunder, rising and falling one after another. Unknowingly, Shun Lian and the angry monk had already fought intensely for several hours. The sky gradually darkened and dusk approached. Is this all you've got? You should be able to become stronger, right? Do you need me to anger you before you're willing to use your strongest ability? Shun Lian laughed sinisterly. At this moment, Shun Lian's long hair was fluttering in the wind. His hair was as white as the moonlight. A slit opened between his eyebrows, and his third eye was extremely sharp, demonic, yet it carried an indescribable sense of beauty. Fourth gear, half human, half demon body. This was Shun Lian's strongest form. In this form, Shun Lian's physical strength was fully unleashed. Boundless mighty power surged out like a tide, splitting a mountain with one punch. The angry monk, on the other hand, was so angry that his hair stood straight up. Red flames enveloped him, and his aura kept rising. Even so, compared to Shun Lian, who was in fourth gear, the angry monk was still unable to gain the upper hand. This made the angry monk very angry. Shun Lian suddenly flashed and teleported. He used the Thousand Shadows divine ability and instantly transformed into thousands of shadows. The angry monk looked around, not knowing what to do. All of a sudden, Shun Lian suddenly pounced from his side. 8 fists took turns to violently hit the angry monk. The angry monk was caught off guard, and in a blink of an eye, he was hit by more than 10 fists. His whole body was covered with fist marks. Ah! The angry monk roared. His eyes turned scarlet, and his skin was dyed red. He looked extremely horrifying. Seeing this, Shun Lian understood. He sneered, "So that's how it is. You should still be able to become stronger, but you need to be extremely angry. So angry that you lose all rationality and completely turn into an angry beast." Monk! Monk! The angry monk, in his fury, could no longer express himself. Shun Lian shook his head and sighed. As expected, every time you enter a state of fury, your mind will be seriously damaged. Over time, you will become a fool. Looking at your current state, you are in imminent danger. I'm afraid this is the last time you'll be a human. The Fuyin Temple couldn't save you, so they decided to destroy you with my hands. No, the angry monk roared towards the sky. The earth trembled violently, and dozens of streams of lava shot into the sky. 90 Mountain, Family Huang. Bailey Xingshu counted the time and said in a low voice, "It's about time." The angry monk is about to enter his third form, soaring anger. Huang Yuanwu took a deep breath and sighed with an excited expression. What's going to happen next will offend the Fuyin Temple to the core. The best strategy is to destroy the enemy's plans. Bailey Xingshu exhaled lightly and said calmly, "The angry monk is extremely powerful, but he can only be suppressed under the demon subduing tower of the Fuyin Temple. What a pity." Huang Yuanwu smiled and said, "I'm afraid that the Fuyin Temple would never expect that the Blood Sea Corpse mountain formation that we spent so much effort to prepare was not to deal with Shun Lian, but to refine the angry monk." Bailey Xingshu looked into the distance and said, "Everyone has their own way of doing things. For example, Shun Lian. His battle with Ingmuyu could be said to have been very careful. Shun Lian used Ingmuyu to defeat the 100,000 demon army in White River City. He used Ingmuyu to destroy Fire Demon Basin, and so on. Also this time, I highly suspect that Suilin of Goguryeo was also used by him. It can be said that Shun Lian is very good at using his opponent's strength to fight back. This is his way of doing things. Then, this time with a monster like the angry monk, what will Shun Lian use him for?" Chapter 316. Huang Yuanwu said in a low voice, "Shun Lian naturally won't miss this opportunity. He will definitely lure the angry monk to eliminate Family Huang's subordinate forces one by one, or he will directly charge at 90 Mountain." Bailey Xingshu grinned and said, "As long as they come, they will fall into our trap. The Blood Sea and Corpse Mountain formation is Family Huang's secret. It can refine anyone into a blood corpse." After Shun Lian enraged the angry monk to the third stage, the angry monk will become a mindless beast. It is the perfect material to refine a corpse. As long as we can refine such a beast into the Blood Sea and Corpse Mountain formation successfully, the angry monk will become the most terrifying blood corpse in history. Most importantly, this blood corpse monster is completely under our control. With such a terrifying monster in our hands, not only can we defeat Xinlian, we can also easily sweep through the northern lands. We can even sweep through the central plains with an unstoppable momentum. Huang Yuanwu nodded heavily. His eyes revealed a gratified expression. He patted Bailey Xingshu's shoulder and said, Xingshu, the formation of this daring plan is all thanks to you. You've worked hard. Bailey Xingshu bowed his head and said, I was originally a stupid person. I was mediocre and was bullied by others. It was Family Head who saw that I was a bright pearl covered in dust. Under my stupid appearance, there was a sharpness hidden. He bestowed upon me great wisdom. This is how I became the Bailey Xingshu today. I am willing to do my best for Family Huang until my death. No matter how much merit I achieve, it is only part of my duty. Huang Yuanwu looked up to the sky and laughed. He said in high spirits, discovering you and cultivating you is the wisest thing I have done in my life. No. The angry monk seemed to have gone mad. He roared angrily, and the wind and clouds swept over. The scene of magma erupting and flooding the earth was extremely shocking. However, Xunlian was calm and relaxed. There was an indescribable smile on his face. Why aren't you angry yet? Continue to rage and enter your strongest form. You will be able to defeat me, but the price is to lose yourself forever. Victory or defeat, it's all up to you. What are you waiting for? The Faiyuan Temple has already given up on you. When they released you, they knew what your fate was. Xunlian's words seemed to have some kind of strange magic, which made the angry monk go crazy and roar like a wild beast. A long time passed. Xunlian sighed and said, I once heard that when Buddha walked, he was always very careful and couldn't bear to step on an ant. Do you know why? Let me tell you the answer. That's because anger is something only the weak can do. The truly strong will always be the most gentle. Someone as powerful as the Buddha viewed all living beings as ants. No matter what those ants did, the Buddha would not be angered. You and I are both very strong, but I am truly strong, and you're just a good-for-nothing who can't even control your temper, a coward. In my eyes, you are just a pitiful and despairing ant. These words deeply provoked the angry monk. He suddenly stopped roaring. The scarlet light in his eyes intensified. A terrifying pressure exploded from his body. The wind and clouds suddenly changed, and large black clouds gathered. Lightning rolled and thunder rumbled. True rage is not hysteria, but the calm before the storm. Seeing this scene, Xunlian couldn't help but reveal a playful expression. Whoosh! The red flames burned fiercely, enveloping the angry monk and soaring into the sky. The red flames were actually formed by anger. The anger was so strong that it condensed into a solid flame. This was the true flame of anger. The terrifying flame of anger could burn the sky and destroy the world. The angry monk's last bit of rationality disappeared, and he completely turned into a violent beast. The earth trembled violently, as if in fear. Crack, crack, crack! The earth split open, and magma erupted. A flood seemed to sweep in all directions. Xunlian's face suddenly turned pale. His body was in turmoil, and his anger was wreaking havoc. At this moment, the anger in his heart seemed to have gone out of control, and it controlled all his emotions. His eyes glowed red. Interesting, the angry monk has become the embodiment of anger. He can actually control the anger in anyone's body. Xunlian licked his lips and took a deep breath. The red light in his eyes immediately receded. Anger is the devil. Only absolute rationality can suppress it. Xunlian was still very calm. His fighting spirit was boiling, and he was filled with absolute confidence. At this moment, the angry monk, wreathed in raging flames, pounced. Before the angry monk could get close, Xunlian felt a terrifying wave of anger invading his face. It provoked the anger in his body, and it was about to erupt again. I walk through thousands of mountains alone, and I am not frightened by thousands of troops. What can mere anger do to me? Xunlian roared, and his eyes were bright. He smiled and said, If I'm not wrong, I already have a way to defeat you. Or rather, only I can defeat you. Theurgy, platinum, divine wind. Theurgy, blooming iron tree. Shun Lian used two powerful theurgies in one breath. A white gust of wind swept out, and like an iron whip, it ruthlessly lashed the angry monk's body, blasting him to the ground. Immediately, lush iron trees rose from the ground. Under Shun Lian's control, they gathered into an iron cage, firmly trapping the angry monk. The angry monk struggled with all his might, and the iron trees were crushed like tofu. However, the iron trees kept regenerating endlessly and could still trap him in the cage. Shun Lian's expression became serious. With a shout, a fiery light flashed, and the raging flame lion appeared out of thin air, looking majestic. The raging flame lion is the materialization of the angry wolf flame spirit, and similarly controls the power of anger. Go! Either you devour the angry monk, or the angry monk devours us. This was the only way Shun Lian could think of to defeat the angry monk. The angry monk's anger was berserk, chaotic, and uncontrollable. It spread like cancer cells, and could not be contained. Thus, Shun Lian had two choices. One was to continue the raging flame lion's anger into the angry monk, and when it exceeded a certain limit, the angry monk would self-detonate. Two was to use the raging flame lion to devour the angry monk's anger. This would require the combination of devour goo and ease goo. Of course, this was far from enough. Fortunately, Shun Lian still had the strategic goo. The first method was too risky. After the angry monk absorbed the anger, he would only become stronger to the point that Shun Lian would not be able to suppress him. It was possible that before he exploded, Shun Lian would be killed by him. The second method also had many variables. Because the devouring anger would enter the body, it was extremely dangerous. It was very likely that Shun Lian would go crazy and turn into an angry wild beast like the angry monk. But after comparing, Shun Lian chose the second method. I'm going to defeat you right here. Shun Lian's gaze flashed, and the raging flame lion immediately pounced at the angry monk, opening its bloody mouth and devouring fiercely. Chapter 317. Anger is harmful to the body. Anger is even more harmful to the body. The angry monk had transformed into anger. The raging flames on his body were comparable to poison and could not be touched. Even the ground would spurt out magma. It was easy to imagine what would happen to ordinary people if they touched it. Anger destroys everything. This was not a lie. But at this moment, the raging flame lion actually swallowed a lump of raging flames. In an instant, Shun Lian's anger surged. His body heated up and hot blood rushed to his head. His eyes shone with red light and tears of blood flowed out. What a berserk anger! Shun Lian's lips twitched as he started to suppress it. First, the sorrowful jade rabbit flashed out and used the cold spring energy to cool his body and mind. This was not enough. He then used the undead fire to envelop himself. The undead fire was Een fire and was the nemesis of the raging flames to a certain extent. It was even more effective when used together with the cold spring energy. Then, why did he not use the cold spring energy and undead fire to directly attack the angry monk? The reason was simple. Anger had the attribute of destruction. It was like the source of destruction. Be it Suilin of Gogurio's heavenly one divine water, Li Youxiang's intoxicated wine qi, or the cold spring energy and undead fire. These penetrating attacks were almost useless against the angry monk. They were all turned into nothingness by the raging flames. Similarly, anger was the devil. Even the great wisdom sword could not cause any effective damage. The only way to defeat the angry monk was to use violence to curb violence and anger to curb anger. Cold spring energy and undead fire treat the symptoms, but not the root cause. The only thing that can truly suppress anger is the military strategy goo. Shun Lian took a deep breath as his consciousness entered the military strategy space and sat on the double-sided throne. In an instant, he turned into the king of wisdom, using his absolute rationality to suppress the berserk anger. At this moment, Shun Lian suppressed all the discomfort in his body to a tolerable level. He then shook his body and released large amounts of mud-like mucus, helping the raging flame lion to refine the raging flames. Freedom Goo continued to reconstruct his body, adjusting it to the explosive strength caused by the anger. Yes, anger made people full of strength. The angry monk's raging flames contained an incomparably violent power. Refining the angry monk's raging flames made Shun Lian feel as if he had been injected with phoenix blood. The muscles all over his body wriggled violently as his true body continued to grow. This kind of explosive increase in strength was undoubtedly a drastic change. It was very dangerous. If he was not careful, his body would not be able to bear the burden. If he exceeded the limit, it was possible that his body would explode and die. It could be said that in order to devour and refine angry monk's raging flame, Shun Lian used his special skills. The flame spirit voodoo, bones spirit voodoo, swallowing voodoo, freedom voodoo, and strategy voodoo. Even so, the whole process was still thrilling. That was why Shun Lian said that only he could defeat the angry monk. This was not an exaggeration. Other Gu masters simply did not possess the qualifications to defeat the angry monk. Gradually, Shun Lian did 5 things at once. The 5 Gu cooperated with each other and became increasingly familiar with the task. And after refining the raging flames, his strength skyrocketed at an unimaginable speed. On the other hand, the angry monk's raging flames continued to be plundered and became less violent. Under this situation, Shun Lian finally completely suppressed the angry monk. This continued for half a day before the angry monk slowly calmed down and stood motionless in the iron cage. His eyes were empty and his expression was wooden, like a huge stone statue. Shun Lian's divine sense swept over him and could not help but sigh. The moment the angry monk entered raging flames, his mind completely collapsed. After a long period of anger, his mind was already damaged, and this raging flames took away the last of his spirituality. The angry monk had already died long ago, only leaving behind a body driven by anger. His only desire was to destroy and destroy. The angry monk is a pitiful person. Shun Lian lightly sighed. Suddenly, his gaze flashed and his expression changed. His divine sense penetrated into the angry monk's body and found that his entire body had already withered and died. There was not even a drop of blood left. His organs were also burned away, leaving behind only an empty shell. Only the heart area had a red beating heart. This is... Shun Lian's gaze focused as he carefully looked at it. His breathing stagnated. This is not a heart. There is not even a bit of flesh. This is a heart of anger formed completely from anger. The source of the angry monk's power was found. The heart of anger. The angry monk destroyed the world and himself in his anger. But destruction was also rebirth. Either be destroyed in the raging flames, or be reborn in the raging flames. The angry monk was dead, but with his flesh and blood essence as fertile soil, the heart of anger was born. Oh my God, this thing! Even Shun Lian felt that it was inconceivable. This was the purest essence of anger. It was 10,000 times purer than a beautiful girl who grew up drinking pure water. Shun Lian took a deep breath and composed himself. He quickly calmed down. His mind was churning like a tide as he thought about how to deal with this heart of anger. Theoretically speaking, the heart of anger should be classified as a divine object. It can be used to refine a magical and powerful post-celestial treasure. But for me, there is another option. I can use the Devour Goo to directly devour and assimilate it. The corner of Shun Lian's lips curled up. With a heart of wrath, how powerful would he be? Just thinking about it made him excited, as if he was electrocuted. Thinking of this, Shun Lian's mind calmed down. His 5 fingers closed together like a knife and broke open the angry monk's body, grabbing the heart of anger and pulling it out. As the heart of anger was dug out, the angry monk's body lost its support and turned into ashes as the wind blew. A peerless evil monk of a generation had died just like that. The legacy he left behind for the world was enough to make people go crazy. Shun Lian held the heart of anger tightly and immediately sat down cross-legged, only to see a mud-like viscous liquid gushing out and wrapping around the heart of anger, sucking it into his body. Thump, thump, thump in his body. The heart that had fused with the dragon heart goo was beating vigorously. Suddenly, the heart of anger approached him. The two hearts quickly started a brand new fusion. Like lightning striking the earth, crackling noises sounded like beans being fried. Shun Lian's body was trembling nonstop. He was unable to describe his current feelings. Under his calm expression, there was a raging emotion burning and boiling in his body. It was filled with contradictions and chaos, but it was completely under his control. It was like eating a lemon. It was indescribably sour and stimulating. About an hour later, the interface flashed and new information appeared. Assimilation of the heart of anger completed. Obtained berserk transformation, and raging flames. Berserk transformation, and raging flames. Shun Lian's eyes shone brightly. He was excited. The heart of anger gave him a huge change. It was equivalent to refining berserk transformation and berserk transformation goo at the same time. Moreover, the effect was permanent and his physical strength had risen sharply. But the most important thing was the raging flames. He had personally experienced the destructive power of this thing. It could only be described as terrifying. Chapter 3:18. The Raging Lion is a flame spirit and can perfectly control anger. I'll leave the raging flame to it. Shun Lian quickly found a reliable solution. He smiled, put away the raging lion, and looked around. Lava was everywhere, like a sea. Thick smoke billowed, covering the sky. It was an apocalyptic scene. Shun Lian looked for a direction and teleported several times. Soon, he found Li Youxiang and the others dozens of miles away. Young master, when they saw Shun Lian, they were all pleasantly surprised. One must know that Shun Lian and Raging Monk were fighting fiercely. They fought until the sky was dark and the ground was dark. The magma was erupting everywhere, and it scared them quite a bit. They ran as far as they could. Besides being in a difficult situation, they were also worried about Shun Lian's safety. Haha, I knew young master was invincible. Yes, young master is invincible. Long live young master. Words could no longer express the joy of Li Youxiang, Feng Ruoxi, Shi Hu, and Ning Quan. Woof! Abomination was also very happy. It immediately ran over and intimately rubbed against Shun Lian, wagging its tail happily. I'm fine. It's a blessing in disguise, Shun Lian said briefly. He then jumped onto Abomination's back and smiled. There's a change of plans. You don't have to follow me anymore. I'll put you in a Wushang Inn and then drive you back to New Koan. Li Youxiang was surprised. Young master, what are you going to do? Shun Lian smiled. I'm going to destroy family Huang. Alone? Yes, I can do it alone. Shun Lian waved his hand. Li Youxiang, the others, and the dimples instantly disappeared. Then, Shun Lian pointed in a direction, and Abomination immediately ran. In a large pit, Suilin of Goguryeo was curled up in a ball, panting weakly. In fact, he had already woken up. The moment he woke up, Suilin of Goguryeo suddenly felt the terrifying aura of the angry monk. The crazy and violent anger made him shudder. He wished he could knock himself out and never wake up again. Finally, he hibernated in the pit and shivered until now. Suilin of Goguryeo. Shun Lian came to the edge of the pit and gave it a sidelong glance. Suilin of Goguryeo raised her head in shock. Her huge snake head revealed a look of great shock as she exclaimed, "You're not dead." Shun Lian chuckled. "Do you really want me to die?" Suilin of Goguryeo was stunned for 3 seconds before realizing what had happened. Shun Lian had defeated the angry monk. Is it possible? It's scary just thinking about it. Suilin of Goguryeo felt his hair stand on end. He looked at Shun Lian as if he were looking at a monster. Deep fear was reflected in his eyes. He lowered his head subconsciously and said with a flattering smile, "Of course not. I naturally believe that the King of the North will definitely defeat the angry monk." Shun Lian waved his hand and said, "You are badly injured. We don't need you anymore. Go back." Swaylin of Goguryeo sucked in a breath of cold air and said in horror, "You don't need me anymore? Don't tell me you plan to." Shun Lian smiled domineeringly and said, "Before today, I was only invincible as an individual, but I couldn't contend against a huge aristocratic family. But now I can, using the power of a single person to contend against an aristocratic family." After saying this, Shun Lian rode Abomination and rushed away, ignoring Swaylin of Goguryo's shock. Rushing towards 9 Mountain Abomination's speed was unparalleled, and it was good at traveling long distances. It only took a few hours to reach 9 Mountain. "Don't stop. Charge in." Shun Lian crossed his arms in front of his chest and coldly stared at 9 Mountain. Abhorrence understood. It roared and charged into 9 stronghold. It rampaged through the bustling market. It was unstoppable. Immediately, 9 stronghold was in chaos. Who dares to cause trouble in 9 stronghold? One of Family Huang's patrolling retainers rushed over and shouted. Abomination pounced over and bit the retainer. It swung the retainer a few times and threw him into the sky. Blood splattered everywhere. Everyone was shocked. "The King of the North is here. Anyone who blocks me will die." Shun Lian looked up to the sky and shouted. His voice was like thunder that shook the sky and spread throughout 9 mountain range. "He is the King of the North, Shun Lian. Heavens, I heard that he was going to kill his way here, but I didn't expect him to come alone. Is this person crazy? Causing trouble in Family Huang's territory. So what if you are strong? Can you contend against an aristocratic family?" In the midst of the discussions, all kinds of people on the street opened up a path. Many people stretched their necks and shrunk their necks, looking like they were watching a show. Abomination swaggered past. Those Family Huang's patrolling retainers did not dare to get close. They only surrounded it from afar and followed it. At this time, two people suddenly rushed out of shop. They were the father and daughter, Sanjio and Yi. They were ordered to infiltrate 9 stronghold and monitor Family Huang closely. This subordinate greets the King of the North. Sanjio pulled Yi and knelt down on the street with an extremely excited expression. He immediately handed over a stack of paper. On the paper, there were portraits of Family Huang's people. Their names, ranks, positions, and other information were written. Sanjio, who used to be a busker, had many talents. He was good at drawing and was self-taught. In Shun Lian's initial plan, the father and daughter would infiltrate 9 stronghold and obtain some information about Family Huang's people. Shun Lian would then look at the portraits and names and use the Judge Gu to write their names in the Book of Life and Death. He would first kill a group of Family Huang's people to strengthen his prestige. Shun Lian smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work. I placed you in 9 stronghold to suppress Family Huang's people when attacking Family Huang. Now that the situation has changed, you should return to Wushangin for now." After saying this, Shun Lian raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. The father and daughter immediately disappeared in a flash. Soon after, Abomination continued to move forward ostentatiously. When it reached the end of 9 stronghold, there was a heavy bronze door that was even bigger than Lone Mountain Gate. Behind this bronze door is Family Huang's headquarters. Shun Lian grinned and clenched his hand into a fist. Light surged on his fist like a dragon that was about to break free and fly out. "Break!" Shun Lian's right arm shook slightly as his fist shot out. Swish! The sharp sound of the fist breaking through the air shook heaven and earth. A dazzling divine light swept across the horizon, causing heaven and earth to tremble. Next, there was a loud explosion and a grand sound wave spread out. Everyone in 9 stronghold covered their ears as they felt a splitting headache. In the next moment, the fist light crashed into the bronze door. The bronze door was like a piece of paper that was destroyed by the terrifying fist energy and shattered into pieces. Behind the bronze door, there were many Family Huang's retainers who were waiting in formation. Who would have thought that the thick bronze door would be directly broken open? The fragments shot out like rain and knocked down a group of people, causing them to cry out in pain. Shun Lian stood up and stood on Abomination's back as he shouted to his heart's content. King of the North is here. Do you dare to fight? Shun Lian, don't be arrogant. Suddenly, a person appeared on a high hill in the distance. Who else could it be but Bailey Xingshu? However, at this moment, Bailey Xingshu's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. His hair was as white as snow. Seeing this scene, Shun Lian was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed loudly and said, "Other people's hair turns white in one night. How many nights have yours turned white?" Chapter 319. Bailey Xingshu was agitated as he shouted, "Shun Lian, there is a path to heaven, but you don't want to walk. There is no door to hell, but you insist on walking. You are dead meat today." Shun Lian laughed and said loudly, "Bailey Xingshu, you look stupid, but to think, you are really stupid." Bailey Xingshu glared and sneered. "I know you have Wushang in, you can move troops and teleport large groups, but you can only teleport 1,000 people at most. Compared to the huge family Huang, what can you do? Moreover, do you have so many troops under you? New Kuan is only a gang. A bunch of trash. They can't help you. Don't even think about opening the undead space. We have already sealed the space. No alternate space can be opened. Without the undead army, you'll be all alone." Shun Lian curled his lips and said coldly, "That's right. This was indeed my initial plan. There is no harm in telling you my trump card now. Stand still and listen carefully. New Kuan is full of talents. They're not trash. There are hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the gang. There are 1,000 gold-ranked rank 10 Gu Masters." "What?" Bailey Xingshu's expression changed as he shouted, "Impossible. Even if you have the King's Jade. Only 3 months have passed. How can you nurture 1,000 gold-ranked rank 10 Gu Masters?" Saying this, Bailey Xingshu suddenly thought of something, and his expression turned extremely ugly. He squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth and said in fear, "Wedding dress sect." There was only one possibility. Shun Lian dismissed it with a laugh. "I've already said, even if you know, it won't change anything. Because those 1,000 gold-ranked rank 10 Gu Masters won't appear today. I alone am enough to flatten 9 Een Mountain." Bailey Xingshu was on the verge of collapsing. His expression turned dejected as he laughed sinisterly. "You alone? Hee. You are too arrogant. You don't understand how terrifying family Huang's foundation and strength are. Ignorance is fearlessness." Who exactly is the ignorant and fearless one? You will soon know. Shun Lian's expression turned cold. He looked around family Huang's camp and said loudly, "Family Huang, listen up. The King of the North is here. Those who submit to me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. I give you half an hour to come out and surrender. Otherwise, don't blame me for starting a massacre." Bailey Xingshu swung his sleeves and shouted, "There's no need for an hour. I'll reply to you on behalf of family Huang right now. You're delusional. You're crazy. You're courting death. Shun Lian, family Huang has set up the Blood Sea Corpse mountain formation for you. If you have the guts, then enter the formation and fight. Do you dare?" Shun Lian said disdainfully, "Since you're trying so hard to provoke me, I'll give you some face and enter the formation to play." Bailey Xingshu perked up and said excitedly, "All right, follow me." He turned around and left. The abomination huffed. Seeing that Shun Lian did not give any other orders, it immediately rushed out. Bailey Xingshu came to the bottom of the mountain stream. He took a deep breath and stood with his hands behind his back. Huang Yuanwu led the elders and clansmen to stand on top of the stilted building next to the mountain stream. There were a total of 15,000 of them, and they were arranged in a circular formation on each floor. Everyone looked at Shun Lian with a dignified expression. Their eyes were filled with hatred. Shun Lian looked around and locked his gaze on Huang Yuanwu. He smiled and said, "Family Huang, I've heard a lot about you." Huang Yuanwu said angrily, "You're just a Jianghu thief. All you did was defeat Ingmu Yu, and you got carried away. You actually dared to compete with family Huang for the North. You overestimated yourself. You deserve to die." Shun Lian smiled and said, "If you're not convinced, then let's fight. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Bailey Xingshu took a deep breath and waved his sleeves. Immediately, A blood-colored scroll flew out and spread out in the air. On the scroll, there was a huge blood-colored whirlpool. It looked like a bloody mouth that was about to devour someone. Huang Yuanwu said solemnly, "Shunlian, come in and die." Saying so, Huang Yuanwu suddenly jumped down from the building and entered the scroll, disappearing into the blood-colored whirlpool. Immediately after, the elders also jumped down with solemn expressions. There were also other family Huang clansmen. Close to 5,000 people entered the blood-colored whirlpool. These people were all gold-rank Gu masters. They were no doubt family Huang's elite troops. Bailey Xingshu's expression was tense. He stretched out his hand and made an inviting gesture, saying, "Shun Lian, it's your turn." "Don't tell me you don't dare." Shen Lian laughed loudly. "What are you afraid of? The king of the north is a man of his word. Even if there are millions of people, I will still go." With a leap, Shun Lian also jumped into the blood-colored whirlpool. Bailey Xingshu watched with an extremely anxious expression. He stared at the blood-colored whirlpool, as if he could see the situation inside. Crash! Shun Lian did not land on the ground. Instead, he landed in a sea of blood. Whoosh! He quickly rode the wind and pulled himself up into the air the moment he got close to the sea. Looking around, the sea of blood stretched as far as the eye could see. A strong smell of blood rose up, causing people to feel nauseous and dizzy after smelling it. Huang Yuanwu and the rest were nowhere to be seen. They seemed to have dived into the sea. Far away, there was an island. Shun Lian flew over and took a look. His expression changed. How was this an island? It was clearly a mountain of corpses. There were countless corpses piled up together, forming an island. Blood Sea Corpse Mountain Formation. Shun Lian was deep in thought. His gaze flashed, and he suddenly saw a person standing on top of the corpse mountain. It was Huang Yuanwu. "Shun Lian, you have guts." Huang Yuanwu's expression was malevolent and filled with rage. "You still don't know what Blood Sea Corpse Mountain Formation is, right? Let me tell you. It releases the blood essence of 1 million living people and adds family Huang's undying zombie bloodline Gu to create a formation. If a living person falls into this formation, they will be refined into a blood corpse in an instant and become family Huang's clansmen." Shun Lian narrowed his eyes and said coldly, 1 million living people. Family Huang actually silently created such a massacre. Huang Yunwu laughed heartily. "How is this silent? Every year, we kill 100,000 people. After 10 years, we can replenish 10,000 living people's blood every year. Family Huang relies on this formation and has an endless supply of clansmen. Otherwise, how do you think we defeated Family Lin?" Shun Lian's breathing paused. Huang Yunwu said hatefully, "According to our original plan, we would first make a deal with Faiyuan Temple and let them release the angry monk. Then we would use you to force the angry monk into a state of soaring anger. After that, you would lure the angry monk to Ninein Mountain. At that time, we would use the Blood Sea Corpse Mountain Formation to refine the angry monk into a blood corpse and control him to defeat you. Then we would refine you into a blood corpse. In this way, Family Huang would have 2 extra strong battle strength. But who would have thought that you would actually defeat the angry monk? I'm so angry." Shun Lian's expression was as cold as ice as he said coldly, "You guys are daydreaming too much." Huang Yunwu snorted coldly. "Even without the angry monk, it would still be the same with you. To tell you the truth, Family Huang's clansmen will all transform into blood corpses in the Blood Sea Corpse Mountain Formation. They will use blood to fight and have endless battle strength. As for you, after a long time in the Blood Sea Corpse Mountain Formation, you will be corroded by blood energy and gradually turn into a blood corpse. From the moment you rashly entered this formation, you had already lost." Chapter 320. After saying this, Huang Yuanwu's body began to tremble violently. His skin peeled off in large chunks, revealing the tissues underneath. It was a bloody mess, which was extremely disgusting. In the blink of an eye, he had become a skinless blood corpse. With his long hair covering his face and his skin peeled off, He was even scarier than a village zombie. He actually had to fight with a blood corpse again. Shun Lian was speechless. He liked ugly enemies, but this was too king ugly. Gurgle, gurgle. Right at this moment, the sea of blood suddenly began to churn, and fist-sized bubbles began to emerge from down below before exploding on the surface of the sea. Shun Lian's eyes narrowed, and a hint of sarcasm appeared at the corner of his mouth. The bubbles seemed to be a large area of chaos, but they were actually clusters of bubbles connected together. Under each cluster of bubbles, there was a blood corpse hidden. They were naturally the missing family Huang. All of them had been skinned and turned into blood corpses. The army of blood corpses was hidden under the blood sea, staring at Shun Lian with their eyeballs that had no eye sockets or eyelids. Seeing this scene, Shun Lian was deep in thought. He vaguely guessed the mystery of the blood sea and corpse mountain formation. The corner of his mouth could not help but curl up higher, and the sarcasm in his eyes became more intense. At this moment, "Kill!" Huang Yuanwu screamed shrilly. Immediately, all the blood corpses' eyes glowed red, and they all let out a sharp cry. Whoosh! 2 blood corpses broke out of the water almost at the same time, one in front and one behind, pouncing on Shun Lian. Their speed was extremely fast. It was comparable to teleportation. Huang Yuanwu did not speak nonsense. The blood corpses were like fish in water in the blood sea, and their geographical advantage was too obvious. Shun Lian's eyes flashed, and he found that the 2 blood corpses were both holding blood-red swords. The swords seemed to be condensed from blood, scarlet like tongues, and looked exactly the same. It was very similar to the blood-red swords in the hands of the blood corpse Shun Lian encountered when he was in the blood corpse tomb. It should also be the bloody corpse blade. This blade's ability is to release blood. Once you're injured by the bloody corpse blade, even if it's just a small wound, it can destroy the body's ability to stop bleeding and heal itself. This will cause you to bleed nonstop until you die from excessive blood loss. Shun Lian thought to himself and clenched his fists. The reason why he was not in a hurry was because the bloody corpse was too slow. For him, bang, bang, loud noises came from the front and back. Almost at the same time, the 2 bloody corpses were hit by some kind of tremendous force and exploded like watermelons. They turned into minced meat that filled the sky and splashed into the sea of blood. The whole process happened in the blink of an eye. It was too fast. In the first instant, the 2 bloody corpses pounced on Shun Lian, and in the next instant, they suddenly exploded. However, Shun Lian was indifferent, as if nothing had happened. Huang Yuanwu's expression changed, and his eyeballs almost fell out. He was dumbfounded. One must know that the 2 bloody corpses that exploded were family Huang's 2 elders. Their battle strength was among the top among the golden rank Tengu masters. They had been famous for a long time, but they were actually killed by Shun Lian in an instant. The blood corpses were also horrified. They were so scared that they froze. According to their plan, the 2 elders would take the lead, and the people behind would take turns to attack. They would use their advantage in numbers to slowly wear down Shun Lian. There was no need to kill him, but as long as they injured him, the blood chi would naturally take the opportunity to corrode his body. Who would have thought that the 2 fierce and famous elders would die in an instant? Did something happen to the 2 elders, or was it that Shun Lian was too strong? Strong enough to kill the 2 elders in an instant. Everyone in family Huang did not expect this and were all stupefied. When a person is too strong, to the point where it exceeds everyone's imagination, it is hard to believe. Huang Yuanwu sucked in a breath of cold air. He did not believe it and shouted, "Don't stop, kill, kill, kill." As if he was encouraging everyone and himself, Huang Yuanwu shouted the word kill 3 times in a row. In an instant, the bloody corpses were greatly encouraged, and their killing intent surged crazily. Walala! 4 bloody corpses broke out of the water and pounced on Shun Lian from all directions. Their blood-red broadswords chopped, slashed, 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 and cut. Every move was fatal and ruthless. Shun Lian was disdainful and only laughed lightly. He consecutively punched out 4 times. The power of the fists was too terrifying. The whole world was suddenly filled with the sharp sound of air being pierced. It was as if thousands of cold arrows were piercing through the air. The sea of blood violently churned and set off huge waves. The 4 bloody corpses felt their blood run cold. When they were approaching Shun Lian, they suddenly saw a fist with red light growing larger in their vision. Their bodies could not react in time, and the fist landed on them. Boom! Boom! The 4 bloody corpses exploded in the air. Minced meat filled the sky and fell into the sea of blood like rain. At the same time, the sea of blood was also raging with ferocious waves that swept in all directions. The bloody corpses were either swallowed by the waves or thrown out by the waves. Shun Lian curled his lips and immediately used the teleportation ability, Thousand Shadows. He turned into thousands of shadows and suddenly pounced on the bloody corpses and punched out. Boom, boom, boom. The whole world went crazy. The bloody corpses exploded one after another. Miss Meat rained down like rain. Huang Yuanwu was completely dumbfounded. He was dumbfounded as he watched family Huang explode one by one like fireworks. Shun Lian killed more than 500 people in one breath. Only then did he stop. He glanced at Huang Yuanwu and said coldly, "Don't doubt what you saw. My fist of wrath is terrifying. Killing you is easier than breathing." Huang Yuanwu was terrified. His heart was at its limit. It was as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His entire body was covered in ice. Fear dominated all his emotions. Shun Lian sighed and said seriously, "I will give family Huang one last chance. Surrender or die." Huang Yuanwu heard this and immediately recovered from his great shock. He roared, "Who do you think you are? How dare you make family Huang surrender? Family Huang is an aristocratic family. An aristocratic family. We are the most powerful existence. The one who should surrender is you." Shun Lian was slightly stunned. He shook his head and said, "I almost forgot. You aristocratic families have always regarded everyone as ants. It has always been you who stepped on others. No one else has ever stepped on you. No wonder you are still so against me." After a pause, Shun Lian's expression turned completely cold. "Fine. If I don't slaughter a few aristocratic families, how can I make the other aristocratic families in the north submit to me? Today, I will start with family Huang. I will kill all of you and shock the world." Hearing this, Huang Yuanwu suddenly realized something. His scalp went numb, and he could not help but tremble. "Shun Lian, I will not rest until you die." Huang Yuanwu screamed in fear. His blood-red eyes shone with a ruthless light. With the crazy thought of destroying Shun Lian, he looked up to the sky and roared like a wild beast. "Theurgy, king of bloody corpses." The atmosphere in the Bloody Sea realm changed drastically. "Master, no. Master, let's surrender. Master, please spare us." Chapter 321. Huang Yuanwu seemed to have gone mad. He looked at the clan members and said indifferently, "For family Huang, sacrifice your bloodline." No one knew what he did, but the bloody light in his eyes suddenly intensified. "Family head, please spare my life. Family head, I'm your nephew. Please let me go." The blood corpses of family Huang were terrified to the extreme. They struggled and screamed crazily. Chi-chi, drops of thick blood suddenly seeped out from between their eyebrows. What was strange was that the drops of blood emitted a lustrous light like bright rubies. As the drops of blood left the forehead of family Huang's clansmen, their bodies quickly withered. Their flesh quickly rotted and smelled bad. One by one, they sank into the depths of the sea of blood with fear and unwillingness. At the same time, all the drops of blood gathered toward Huang Yuanwu. He gulped them down. In a short while, thousands of clansmen were all dead. Gulp. Huang Yuanwu swallowed. His stomach suddenly swelled up, as if it was about to burst. "Ha ha, Shun Lian, you're dead meat." Huang Yuanwu's face was filled with killing intent. His eyes were blood red, and his eyeballs couldn't be seen. Only a bloody light flashed. "Oh!" Huang Yuanwu screamed. His body trembled violently. His aura suddenly skyrocketed. His body also grew, and he became 5 feet tall. 2 goat horns had also grown out of his head, and his 5 fingers had turned into 10 fingers. Each finger was more than a meter long and as sharp as a knife, carrying a ferocious aura that could tear the heavens and earth apart. Shun Lian, you forced me to do this. Huang Yuanwu's feet stepped on the mountain of corpses. He laughed crazily and roared. Turning into the Blood Corpse King and burning my pure bloodline will allow me to explode with 100 times more power. Shun Lian, this is the horror of an aristocratic family. This is the nobility of a bloodline. You don't understand. You're ignorant. So you deserve to die? I will cut you into 1,000 pieces, grind your bones, and scatter your ashes to vent the hatred in my heart and comfort the dead family Huang clansmen. Shun Lian raised his eyebrows slightly, revealing a trace of surprise. He said in astonishment, I always felt that the bloodline of an aristocratic family was not simple, but I didn't expect that burning one's bloodline could increase one's combat strength by 100-fold. Is this the maximum increase? Only 100-fold? Huang Yuanwu flew into a rage out of humiliation. Shun Lian wasn't scared at all when he transformed into the Bloody Corpse King. He was as calm as usual and even had the mood to ask all sorts of questions, saying that it was only 100-fold. How could he bear this? He was almost hysterical. I'll kill you. Huang Yuanwu went completely berserk and swept his claw over. If you don't want to say it, then don't. Why are you in such a hurry? Shun Lian curled his lips. After dodging, he sighed leisurely. Huang Yuanwu, although I really want to fight with you and experience the fighting power of the Bloody Corpse King, your appearance is really too ugly. I can't bear to look at it, so I want to end this battle quickly. Solve it quickly? Haha. Huang Yuanwu was speechless and laughed. I, who transformed into the Bloody Corpse King, am invincible. I'm more than 10 times stronger than Ingmuyu. You want to finish me quickly? How laughable. Shun Lian's lips twitched. He flipped his hand and took out the thorny death spear. Huang Yuanwu's pupil shrank. Shun Lian smiled calmly. Do you recognize this treasure? The thorny death spear. Huang Yuanwu's face flashed with great panic. He was so scared that he took a step back and screamed, Impossible! How could the Gushan League lend their treasure to you? Innate treasures can only be used once. Even if they rely on you, they wouldn't be willing to lend you the thorny death spear. Shun Lian laughed. I'm the king of the north, the future ruler of the world. Everything in the world belongs to me. It's just the thorny death spear. I can hook my finger, and the Gushan League will willingly give it to me. Huang Yuanwu couldn't believe it. He gritted his teeth and shouted, It must be fake. I don't believe it. Shun Lian stood in the air and raised the thorny death spear. He smiled and said, Then stand firm. Huang Yuanwu shuddered as a great sense of uneasiness surged in his heart. His huge body tensed up as he prepared to dodge. In the next moment, the thorny death spear shone brightly. With a flash, it broke free from Shun Lian's hand and turned into a ray of light that shot towards Shun Lian. It shot towards him like a ray of light. I can't dodge it. Huang Yuanwu's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, he was filled with endless despair. If you can't do one thing, you can't move an inch. Thorny thorns pierce the earth. Your life will be dull. Shun Lian's eyes flashed. He didn't want to miss the next scene. He was full of anticipation for the power of the thorny death spear. Puff! The thorny death spear's light hit Huang Yuanwu's body. There was no grand scene of it being pierced through. Instead, the light shattered. Shun Lian was surprised and couldn't help but exclaim. Huang Yuanwu was even more surprised. He looked at himself and confirmed that he wasn't injured. Aha! Huang Yuanwu was overjoyed. He had escaped from death. He immediately laughed wildly. This is the innate cardinal treasure, the thorny death spear. You still say that it's not fake? Shun Lian squinted his eyes. He suddenly noticed that there were many fine dust floating around Huang Yuanwu and seeping into his body. Hence, Shun Lian crossed his arms in front of his chest and waited calmly. He didn't let him wait for long. With a puff sound, something suddenly broke out of Huang Yuanwu's chest. It was a thick thorn. Huang Yuanwu suddenly screamed. A sharp pain swept through his body. Thorns grew out from all parts of his body. Huang Yuanwu was in so much pain that he felt like dying. He fell to the ground and rolled crazily, struggling nonstop. A thorn pierced out his mouth. Huang Yuanwu stopped screaming. His body only twitched for half an hour before stopping. The thorns intertwined and covered the huge king blood corpse. Something miraculous happened. The brambles blossomed, blooming into beautiful blood-red flowers that were exceptionally beautiful. A light flashed on the interface. Shenlian glanced at it and saw that the information had been updated. Thorny Death Spear replica, innate cardinal treasure, power, fatal bloom, maximum usage. One time, the Thorny Death Spear was kept in the Emperor's treasure house, and it evolved and grew. Is this the blessing of the Emperor's treasure house? Shenlian couldn't help but feel happy. A burst of fragrance came. Shenlian smelled it and felt refreshed. Suddenly, his eyes flashed, and he saw a red fruit growing beside the flower. It was the size of an apple, and its shape was similar to that of kiwi. Its entire body was crystal clear, and it was overflowing with colors. This is... Shenlian's mind moved. He used his telekinesis to pluck the red peach fruit and looked at it in his hand. He felt that the fruit was chubby and fragrant. There were colorful lights flowing inside. The thorns have bloomed. This thing should be edible. Shenlian thought for a moment and took a bite. Suddenly, the full juice filled his mouth and teeth. An indescribable taste bloomed on his tongue. He couldn't help but tremble as if he had been electrocuted. Delicious. Chapter 3:22. Delicious. After eating the thorn fruit, Shenlian felt a warm current flowing through his body. It made him feel extremely comfortable, as if he was soaking in a hot spring. After a while, the warm current slowly disappeared. Shenlian's body did not experience any changes. He could not help but ponder. He did not know if the thorn fruit had any other magical effects. It might take time for them to appear. At this moment, with Huang Yuanwu's death, the Blood Sea and Corpse Mountain formation lost its core and began to collapse. A crack suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. Shenlian did not hesitate. He jumped into the crack and appeared outside in a flash. He happened to see the blood-red scroll being torn in half and falling beside Bailey Xingshu's feet. At this moment, Bailey Xingshu's face was filled with grief and despair. There was no trace of blood on his face. He swayed and sat on the ground, paralyzed. He fell into a great daze. Shenlian looked around and could not help but be stunned. He saw that the magnificent stilted buildings were covered with countless thorns. They intertwined and crawled all over the buildings. In the depths of the thorns, he could faintly see the remains of flesh and blood. Beautiful flowers bloomed on the thorns. They were as beautiful as blood. There were tens of thousands of them. The thorny death spear only killed Huang Yuanwu. Why did these family Huang clansmen? Shenlian did not know that the thorny death spear was an innate supreme treasure that could destroy aristocratic families. It had a chain reaction. It killed one person and killed the entire family. However, he quickly thought of this and could not help but be deeply moved. He held his breath. The thorny death spear is actually the nemesis of aristocratic families. This is crazy. It can kill an aristocratic family with one spear. Awesome. Shenlian could not help but be overjoyed. He was overwhelmed with emotions. The aristocratic family's strength and pride were the biggest obstacle to Shenlian's unification of the northern region. With the thorny death spear's great deterrence, who would dare to not submit to it? Try and kill your entire family. However, these thorns only bloomed flowers. They did not bear any fruit. Shenlian scanned with his divine sense. He could not find a single thorn fruit. He could not help but feel slightly disappointed. His appetite could not be satisfied. At this moment, Shenlian heard the sound of crying. It was a miserable cry. It was Bailey Xingshu. This person was in a complete mess, with tears streaming down his face and snot flowing down his nose. Shenlian's heart skipped a beat. This person possessed great wisdom, but was foolishly loyal. It would be a pity to kill such a loyal person. He pondered for a moment and said, Bailey Xingshu, family Huang, is done for. It's your turn now. Bailey Xingshu cried and shouted, just kill me. Even if you don't kill me, I will kill myself. Shun Lian raised his eyebrows and shouted, Family Huang's foundation is at Nine Mountain. If you can bear to see Nine Mountain destroyed, it will be easier for you to die. However, everything of Family Huang will be taken away by others. Those who are loyal to Family Huang, like you, will also not have a way out. Bailey Xingshu felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on him. He calmed down in an instant. He raised his head and looked coldly at Shun Lian. He gritted his teeth and said, Don't even think about making me submit to you. I will only be loyal to Family Huang for the rest of my life. I will not regret it, even if I die 100 times. Shun Lian smiled and said, I don't want you to be loyal to me. However, I want to give you a chance. This is also to give Family Huang some dignity. Bailey Xingshu frowned and slowly got up. He said, What do you mean? How do you want to give Family Huang some dignity? Shun Lian said, I plan to let the Gushin League take over Nine Ingu Stronghold. However, the Gushin League is far away in Lonely Mountain. You can join the Gushin League and govern the area around Nine Mountain as a guest elder. This will protect Family Huang's foundation as much as possible. What do you think? Bailey Xingshu was speechless when he heard this. You want me to join the Gushin League, be loyal to the Gushin League, and listen to the Gushin League's command. However, the Gushin League is loyal to you, Shun Lian. After going around in a circle, you still want me to be loyal to you. However, after going around in a circle, Bailey Xingshu felt much better and could accept it. Bailey Xingshu naturally saw through Shun Lian's vicious intentions. Niningu Stronghold was rich. Protecting Family Huang's foundation as much as possible was protecting a huge industry. In the future, Nine Ingu Stronghold's income would be under the control of the Gushin League. Naturally, the Gushin League would have to pay tribute to Shun Lian, the King of the North. In the end, the one who would benefit the most would be Shun Lian. When he thought of this, Bailey Xingshu's heart was extremely depressed. However, he gritted his teeth and endured it. He really did not want Family Huang's hard work to fall into the hands of others. This was his home. Who did not want to protect their home? Even if the real owner was no longer around, a loyal dog would still silently protect its home. Okay, I promise you. Bailey Xingshu nodded with hatred. He knew that the situation was hopeless. He just did what he could. Bewitching success. Ding! Bewitching Bailey Xingshu succeeded. Obtained 5,000 bewitchment points. Shun Lian immediately heard a strange sound in his mind. He could not help but smile. After that, Bailey Xingshu came out to appease the remaining members of Family Huang. Those retainers, martial masters, and servants, seeing that Family Huang was finished, were all trembling in fear. Naturally, they followed Bailey Xingshu's lead. Then, Bailey Xingshu ordered these people to patrol the Gu Stronghold as usual. He acted as if Family Huang was still safe. Bailey Xingshu was Family Huang's accountant. The account book here referred to Nine Ingu Stronghold's account book. He clearly knew how much money went in and out of the little Gu garden every day. Sure enough, with Bailey Xingshu's control, Nine Ingu Stronghold continued its business as usual. There were no disturbances. 3 days later, the Gushin League sent people to take over Nine Ingu Stronghold. Only then did everyone know that Family Huang had been exterminated. The news spread like wildfire. For a time, the world was in shock. The great battle for supremacy in the North ended with the King of the North, Shun Lian's complete victory. Family Huang was completely destroyed. The North belonged to Shun Lian. It was already in his bag. The King of the North was no longer an empty title. Countless people were investigating how Shun Lian conquered the Nine Mountain, and how he exterminated an aristocratic family that was at the peak of its power. As many secret details spread, the Bramble Death Spear's name shook heaven and earth. It caused people to tremble in fear. Many influential families were uneasy and could not eat or sleep in peace. The situation in the north suddenly changed. Shun Lian quickly returned to New Kuan. His subordinates immediately attacked from all directions. With the cooperation of the demon race's retreat, Family Lin's territory and Family Huang's territory were all incorporated into their territory. During this period, There were naturally some ignorant fellows who were stubborn and tried to go against New Kuan gang, but the result made everyone's jaws drop. A group of gold-ranked, rank Tengu masters suddenly appeared in a pugilistic world and beat those fellows until they cried out in pain. From then on, no one dared to look down on New Kuan. Not long after, Shunlian sent out invitations to the whole of the north. On the 15th day of the 8th lunar month, at New Kuan's headquarters in Ronghua City, the ascension ceremony would be held. All the influential families thought for a while and came. All the sects thought for a while and came. The people from the other small families came without a second thought. They had no choice but to come. If they did not come, it would mean that they did not accept the king of the north. New Kuan's group of fierce people would immediately kill them and beat them until they cried for their parents. Will they dare not come? Chapter 3:23. Above the sea of clouds, the six-winged centipede soared in the sky. Its huge body was 300 meters long. Its wide wings spread out and covered a large area of the sky. On the giant demon's back, there were 4 figures flying in the wind, looking extraordinary. Among them, there were 2 familiar faces, Min Mountain sect disciple by Yuan Hai and his master, the yellow-robed by Shan Si. The white-haired old man sitting slightly in front of Bai Shan Si had deep wrinkles on his face, but he was hale and hearty, smiling kindly and wearing a simple green robe, giving people a sense of closeness. The last person was a middle-aged woman in a splendid dress. This woman was beautiful, with bright eyes and white teeth, curved eyebrows, and 2 lumps on her chest, shaking as the 6-winged centipede flapped its wings. The splendidly dressed woman chatted with the green-robed old man from time to time, while Bai Shan Si and Bai Yuan Hai listened quietly, as if these two were the leaders. The king of the north is ambitious. After slaughtering family Huang, he used New Kuan as his foundation to continue to recruit and expand his military, as if he doesn't intend to stop here, as if he really wants to annex the entire north. The future of my Min Mountain sect is worrying. The splendidly dressed woman sighed. The green-robed old man nodded lightly. All the signs show that those gold-ranked rank Tengu masters who suddenly appeared in New Kuan should all be wedding dress believers. The king of the north is the new wedding dress leader. With the wedding dress goo in hand and unlimited military expansion, the king of the north is truly awe-inspiring. The splendidly dressed woman said solemnly, "This time, the king of the north is holding a high-profile ascension ceremony. The 5 sects need to make a clear statement. Not recognizing him as the king of the north is out of the question. There are only 2 options, submitting or remaining neutral. It is truly a headache." The green-robed old man waved his hand. For thousands of years, the 5 sects have been united. If they can withstand the oppression of the powerful aristocratic families, they can naturally withstand the oppression of the king of the north. Fairy Yinling, don't worry too much. Everything will be all right. Listening to them chatting, Bai Yuanhai looked at the vast sea of clouds and quickly retreated. His eyes were a little dull, as if he was imagining things. Looking back to more than 2 years ago, he was plotted against by Wind Demon and was injured by a very powerful curse. He lost his mind and was imprisoned. When he was about to die, a Jianghu master suddenly appeared and saved him. That person was Shunlian. He was only an elder of a gang, a Silver Gu master. Compared with his identity as a disciple of Min Mountain sect, it was not worth mentioning. Out of gratitude, Bai Yuanhai naturally treated Shunlian with courtesy. He did not look down on Shunlian because of his status, but deep in his heart, he still had the pride of being a disciple of a famous sect. I was just careless and was plotted against by the Wind Demon. That's why I failed miserably. When I pull myself together, killing the Wind Demon will be as easy as turning my hand. In the future, when I become successful and famous, I can also change the Shunlian's fate with just a word. Bai Yuanhai had always thought so. But who would have thought that more than a year ago, Bai Yuanhai suddenly heard the name Shunlian again? Surprisingly, it became Mu Yu's annual killing commission. Both Northern Secluded Palace and Faiyuan Temple wanted to deal with him. Regarding this, Bai Yuanhai naturally could not do anything. Not to mention him, even his master Bai Shan Si could not stop Mu Yu. Bai Yuanhai had no choice but to ignore it and simply pretended not to know Shenlian. However, the tree may want to be quiet, but the wind will not stop. It should be known that the 5 sects in the north were united, collectively known as the 5 sections. They had formed an alliance for thousands of years to resist the aristocratic families together and protect the interests and dignity of the sections. It could be said that to some extent, Min Mountain Sect and Faiyuan Temple were as close as a family. When Faiyuan Temple wanted to deal with Shenlian, Min Mountain Sect naturally could not go against them. Thus, Bai Yuanhai, who had some relationship with Shenlian, received a warning from the sect, asking him to cut off any relationship with Shenlian and not get involved in any way. But soon, there was news that Shenlian had the Treasure King's jade. Moreover, he had already advanced to a gold rank Gu Master. His strength was not to be underestimated, and his future was limitless. Immediately, the situation changed again. Min Mountain Sect suddenly attached great importance to this matter and carefully investigated Shenlian's past. They found that Min Mountain Sect actually had hopes of recruiting Shenlian into the sect. This time, even his master was implicated and was repeatedly questioned by the sect. Bai Yuanhai's mood at that time was extremely gloomy. He repeatedly asked himself, "Is the Shenlian that everyone is talking about really the person I know?" After being implicated by the whole matter for a year, the shocking news came. Shenlian defeated Muyu and relied on Northern Secluded Palace to proclaim himself as the king of the North. He showed off his ability and even wanted to compete with the arrogant family Huang for the hegemony of the North. Bai Yuanhai couldn't believe it. Every day, his mind was filled with memories of the time when he met Shenlian. He couldn't get rid of them. Then he connected that person with the stirring king of the North, which really made him feel incredulous. At this time, the situation had completely turned to his side. Min Mountain Sect started to put him in an important position, hoping to win over the king of the North through him. Time and fate, because of the same person who seemed to have nothing to do with it, went through a lot of twists and turns and gained a blessing in disguise. After Min Mountain Sect received the invitation of the king of the North, they naturally attached great importance to it and chose 4 people to attend the ascension ceremony. Bai Yuanhai and his master directly occupied 2 seats. The old man in a cyan robe and the woman in a splendid dress who came with them were the legendary elders of Min Mountain Sect. They were important and rarely seen. Bai Yuanhai's level was too low to know much. He only knew that the sect hoped that he could please Shenlian. But on the way, after listening to the words of the 2 legendary elders, he knew that the situation of Min Mountain Sect was unstable and uneasy. The higher-ups were very worried that one day Shenlian would attack the city and end up like family Huang. Bai Yuanhai took a deep breath and felt a heavy responsibility. He clenched his fists tightly and kept organizing words in his mind. He was thinking about how to contact Shenlian when he saw him again. At this time, the 6-winged centipede suddenly turned and sank down. Below was a mountain peak. Bai Yuanhai's eyes flashed, and he recognized it. He asked in surprise, "This is Wuxiao Mountain, right? Why are we here? Aren't we going to Ronghua City?" Bai Shanxi was also surprised. She looked at the old man in a cyan robe. The old man chuckled and said, "We are going to Wuxiao Mountain to do something first. Then we will go to Ronghua City." The 6-winged centipede landed on the top of the mountain. There was an open land with beautiful scenery. Bai Yuanhai looked around and found that there were many people on the top of the mountain. They were wearing different clothes and looked familiar. There were also Buddhist monks present. The 2 legendary elders were not surprised at all. Instead, they smiled and walked forward to greet them. What made Bai Yuanhai hold his breath was that these people were from the other 4 sects: Polar Light Sect, Taiyuan Sect, Faiyuan Temple, and Linkong Sect. Bai Yuanhai suddenly realized that the 5 sects had received the Shenlian's invitation at the same time. They all sent people to attend the coronation ceremony and agreed to have a meeting at Wuxiao Mountain. "Everyone, let's be frank. Our Polar Light Sect and Linkong Sect have never had any contact with the King of the North before. The Min Mountain Sect and Taiyuan Sect have made a good relationship with the King of the North. As for the Faiyuan Temple, The legendary elder of the Polar Light sect said meaningfully. The representative of the Fayuan temple was none other than the laughing monk. He laughed and said, "Old friend, don't worry. The Fayuan temple does have a little misunderstanding with the king of the north. But we have found an appropriate solution. We will not drag you down." The old man in a cyan robe thought for a while and nodded. In that case, according to the old rules, the 5 sects will vote whether to submit to the king of the north or not. He waved his hand and threw out 5 jade slips. The representatives of the 5 sects each took one and drew on the jade slips with their fingers. Then they looked at each other and showed the jade slips at the same time. Everyone looked at them and laughed at the same time. The word no was written on the 5 jade slips. Obviously, the 5 sects had decided not to submit. At this time, the woman in a splendid dress said, "It's rare that we have the same opinion. It's better that the minority obeys the majority." The representative of the Polar Light sect sneered and said, "The wedding dress sect is like a plague. If we let it develop, they will inevitably need to seize a huge amount of resources. It's only a matter of time before they annex the 5 sections. If we don't resist, we will be destroyed. We have no choice." The woman in a splendid dress agreed and said, "However, the king of the north is too strong and aggressive. What are the chances of the 5 sects winning against him?" After this question was thrown out, everyone fell into silence. No one answered for a while. Bai Yuan Hai, on the other hand, was shocked. He had never expected that the 5 sects were conspiring to resist the Shun Lian. After a while, the representative of the Taiyuan sect sighed. This was none other than Shun Xiaoshu's master, and Ning. She smiled and said, "The king of the north is an overlord and has a strong desire to conquer. If the 5 sects don't submit to him, it will only arouse his desire to conquer and attract soldiers. I have a plan that may be able to divert his attention." Hearing this, everyone turned to Ning and pricked up their ears, and Ning paused and continued. "The king of the north is eager to conquer. We only need to give him a direction and a goal to conquer, and then we can successfully divert his attention." Speaking of this, Ning suddenly pointed to the south. Everyone was suddenly enlightened and fell in a deep thought. Their expressions were different, but they gradually became more and more interesting. Bai Yuanhai frowned and looked to the south. After thinking for a while, he couldn't think of any goal in the south that was worthy of Shun Lian's conquest. Ronghua City is in the southernmost part of the north. If we go further south, it will be... Suddenly, Bai Yuanhai thought of something. His breathing stagnated, and a fine layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. "Ah, good plan." The green-robed old man clapped his hands and sighed. He smiled and said, "Since the king of the north is unwilling to give up on conquering, then let him conquer the world." The representative of the ethereal sect sighed and said, "Before that, it seems that the 5 sects can only wrong themselves. At least on the surface, they have to submit to him." And Ning lightly replied, "Yes, only when he feels that the rear is completely safe and there is no enemy will he choose a new goal to conquer. Of course, we can also create a suitable opportunity. There is no need to deliberately create one." The laughing monk suddenly smiled and said, which made everyone's heart skip a beat. Chapter 3:24. The laughing monk waved his hand and said, "The Fayuan temple doesn't have any plans. It's just that before I came here, I received news that the Central Plains will also send people to participate in the coronation." Uninvited, everyone couldn't help but hold their breaths. The old man's expression changed, and he said playfully, "Back in the days, the king of Beiyu dominated the north. Everywhere he went, all the strong people bowed their heads and submitted. However, very few people know that the title of King of Beiyu was actually conferred by the 9 great families of the Central Plains." The laughing monk laughed and said, "That's right. If the 9 great families of the Central Plains don't recognize the title of King of the North, then the King of the North will never be the King of the North. How can they submit?" The representative of the ethereal sect said, "What if the 9 great families of the Central Plains also confer the title of King of the North?" The laughing monk smiled brightly and said, Then we'll see if the king of the north is willing to kneel and accept the edict. The representative of the ethereal sect was stunned for a moment before he suddenly laughed. Seeing this, Ning narrowed her eyes and coughed softly, saying, "In the long run, it's not a bad thing to have the king of the north in the north. At least he defeated the demon race. This monstrous merit is worthy of recognition. As long as he doesn't insist on the five sects kneeling and submitting, it's not impossible for the five sects to recognize him as the king of the north." The old man in the green robe felt the same way and nodded, saying, "The north is in a calamity and people are in a terrible situation. We need to rest and recuperate. I hope the king of the north will stop while he's ahead. Don't force the five sects to completely stand against him in order to protect themselves." Everyone nodded. Bai Yuanhai observed their expressions and could see that the five sects were really afraid of the Shunlian. Even in the era of the aristocratic families, the five sects were united and didn't fear any of the aristocratic families. However, a Shunlian made them so uneasy. How could they endure it? Bai Yuanhai suddenly felt that the scene in front of him was very absurd and funny. "Your Majesty, a letter from the Poison Dragon Pool." In the Water Qilin Palace at the Black River Estuary, housekeeper Old Turtle walked quickly with a letter in his hand. "Hurry up and bring it over." Suilin of Goguryeo, who had just recovered from his serious injury, had a change in his complexion. His family Huang had been annihilated, and he had failed to live up to the Poison Dragon Pool's trust. He felt very uneasy. After Suilin of Goguryeo returned to the Black River Estuary from the Nine Mountain with a body full of injuries, he reported everything to his master and earnestly asked for his master's punishment. Suilin of Goguryeo hurriedly took the letter and opened it. After reading it, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Seeing this, Old Turtle hurriedly asked, "My lord, what does the letter say?" Suilin of Goguryeo smiled and said, "Master did not blame me. Instead, he comforted me and asked me to continue to be friends with the Shunlian." Old Turtle's spirit was greatly boosted. He smiled and said, "That's how it should be. Family Huang was annihilated, and it wasn't your fault. It was their own incompetence." Suilin of Goguryeo deeply agreed and sighed. It's not that family Huang was incompetent, but that Shunlian was too terrifying. To be honest, I don't want to be enemies with the Shunlian at all. Old Turtle was a bit speechless. He felt that Suilin of Goguryeo had changed a lot after coming back from playing with the Shunlian. His aura was much weaker, and he didn't have a trace of the domineering aura that a formidable person should have. Old Turtle thought for a while and said, "Since the Poison Dragon Pool hopes that you can be friends with the Shunlian, why don't you send more gifts during the Ascension ceremony?" Suilin of Goguryeo nodded and said, "That should be the case. Go and prepare a great gift immediately." "Have you packed your things?" On the second floor of the Goo Garden, Wan put down the pen in her hand and folded a letter neatly before stuffing into the envelope. "Yes, I have." She nodded and was slightly hesitant. In the end, she couldn't help but ask, "Sister Yin, are you really going to the Central Plains?" Wan raised her head and looked at Shuangshi. She smiled and said, "Now that things have come to this, I have no other choice. In the Northern Lands, I am no match for the Shunlian. If I want to defeat him, I can only go to the Central Plains." Shuangshi sighed sadly and said, "Do you really have to defeat him?" Wan took a deep breath and said slowly, "If I don't defeat the Shunlian, I won't be able to rule the Northern Lands, and I won't have enough strength to fight against that family, and I won't be able to save your life. Therefore, I have to defeat the Shunlian. This is my promise to you." Shuangshi's eyes were hazy. Wan passed the envelope over and said, "Send it out as soon as possible." Shuangshi nodded and took the letter. Seeing that Wan had changed into a set of white clothes, she said in surprise, "You are going out?" Wan nodded lightly and said, "I'm going to see my father." In front of the Wan residence's gate, a carriage drove over and stopped. A person alighted from a carriage. It was Wan from the Goo Garden. The coachman immediately went to knock on the door. Someone came to open the door. Hearing that Wan was here, the coachman hurriedly went to report. When he returned, he was told that he would not see him. Wan San did not want to see her. Wan was not anxious and directly knelt in front of the door. He knelt from noon until dusk. Rain began to fall from the sky. Wan Yin was drenched from head to toe in the rain. His hair was wet and stuck to his face. When the sky was about to turn dark, the door opened with a creak. Wan Yin raised his head. He saw Lu Rui walking out with an umbrella. Without saying anything, she helped Wan Yin up and brought him into the house. "Come, have a dumpling." At the dining table, Wan Sanyi was carrying a baby and playing with it. This child was naturally born of Lu Rui. He was very cute and could not speak properly. He was still young and could only babble. At this moment, a figure knelt in front of Wan Sanyi. Who else could it be but Wan Yin? Wan Sanyi did not even raise his head and continued to play with his little son. Lu Rui walked over and carried the child away. She waved her hand, and the servants immediately left the room. Wan Sanyi glared at Lu Rui. Lu Rui smiled coquettishly and left with her son. Only the father and daughter were left in the room. After a long while, third young master Wan took a deep look at Wan Yin with a complicated expression on his face. He said emotionlessly, "I remember the last time we had a heart-to-heart talk. You said that you have grasped the general trend of the world. Is there anything you want to add this time?" Wan Yin lowered her head and said, "Your daughter is unfilial and has disappointed you." Wan Sanyi shook his head and said indifferently, "I am no longer disappointed. There is no greater sorrow than a dead heart." Wan Yin said in a low voice, "Father, the world situation has not changed. The apocalypse plan has succeeded and the heaven shrouding barrier is about to be activated. However, I have not been able to control the northern lands as I wished." Wan Sanyi snorted indifferently. "The Shunlian in the northern lands is more suitable than you." Wan Yin said, "I know that I'm not as good as the Shunlian. However, I am not willing to admit defeat and want to fight. Therefore, I plan to go to the Central Plains. This trip is dangerous and unpredictable. The future is uncertain. It may be the last time we will see each other. I have specially come to bid farewell." Wan Sanyi was finally moved. He sighed and said, "Is that double happiness really that important to you?" Wan Yin's body trembled. She said in surprise, "Father knows.